Radio Shack? Okay.
What?
The 80s called.
Welcome to the CoCo Nation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins.
Hello, everybody. How y'all doing today?
Doing
Sounds a bit better
here.
than you.
Yeah, I'm a bit under the weather today, so we'll get through these introductions, and I'll go back and take a nap. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Just keep a little remote thing so you can keep highlighting people when they're talking.
Yeah, I'll just pull the stream deck over on my bed here. All right, let's see. First up, we got Mark Overhoser.
Hello there. Glad to be here today.
All right, and we got L. Curtis Boyle.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
Yeah, Rick Euland.
Folks.
Okay, and then we got Ron Delvaux.
And Arizona, welcome to everyone. It's warm here finally.
What, 85?
Yeah. Gonna be,
About 20 here.
Center
warm.
Square, we got Ken Waters
Hello, everybody.
and Brian Weasler.
Hello all, welcome to the show.
And on the bottom row, yours truly. Next up, Tim Linder.
Tim's here.
Boy, is he small.
Yeah.
in the house.
Yeah.
He's
I'm
real pixelated too.
Small vase, big voice.
Yep.
I think he's calling in on dial-up.
And last but not least, Nick Marentes.
Greetings and salutations.
From down there.
And I
Good
forgot
morning.
to put any co-hosts on this thing this morning. Nobody reminded me.
Oh, don't forget to put co-hosts on.
This is your
Okay.
first time doing it, right?
Yeah, I'll get on that here. Okay, first up today we got Brian Weasler.
Ah, you're going to go ahead and put me on the spot.
That's right.
Okay.
You asked for it.
Ask and you shall receive. At least you guys are not afraid to meet one's demands, right? So,
Brian Industries.
Brian Industries. Let's do
Worldwide.
one thing real quick here. There we are. Give me 1 second. 1 second. I was
Please,
tweaking
stand
one
by.
thing.
I'm sorry, but your second has expired.
There we go. Okay. Now I'm ready here. All red faced and everything here. So, okay. So last week, or not last week, but maybe it was last week, I showed an HDL keyboard and,
Mhm.
let's see here. Let me do this here. Let me do a quick switch of the camera. There we are. Okay. So last week you saw something that looked like this. And it was the one that was in the box that I showed. This is another one that I had that's not in the box. I still have the template for it. I have the screw bag for it that has the little spacers that we talked about. And I also have the template. This is just another one that I have. The other one, like I mentioned, was one that was in the box. And that's why I was intrigued by that one. But this is another one that I have. This one's a little more used. The keys, it needs a little TLC, a little bit of cleaning. But I have all the parts for it, the spacers and the little push downs to lock it into place. And so about 2 weeks ago, Neil Blanchard had reached out to me and wanted if I'd be interested in this keyboard that he had. And I really liked it.
Voila.
Does anybody recognize what model this is?
Yeah, it's got the 1PF programmable function key.
Yep.
At a HJM?
And I'm trying to remember the name of the company that made it.
Try to keep my hand off.
Because it's one of the ones that actually has like the square brackets on the left and right arrows there when you hold
Yeah.
down shift.
Yes, it does. Yep, it
That
has
one's a good one.
square bracket there and a square bracket
HJL?
here. No, not HDL. This one
No,
was made
it's
by
Keytronics.
Keytronics. That yep, there it is. Yep. Curtis had it. Yeah, this one's made by Keytronics. And
Yeah, because the keycaps here with those extra symbols when you ship is what inspired me to work with Ed Snyder and getting the Nitrous 9 keyboards made, because we
Okay.
added a whole bunch of those for the Nitrous 9 keyboard specifically.
yeah, so it has your left and right arrow, and then here's your right bracket, and above the left arrow is a key
Del?
labeled
DL?
DL. Yep.
Yeah, for shift, delete, redelete the whole line.
And then over here is your up and down arrows, and the down arrow has the left bracket, and then there's the this key here labeled PF.
Programmable function. Yeah.
Yep.
The at
And it has
sign, I
a-
think, has something too, doesn't it?
Stop.
So this one here's this one's labeled LC, and it has kind of a square with a line through it. I thought that was kind
Yeah,
of
that's a 0 and LC's lowercase. That's your lowercase toggle if you hit shift 0.
okay. Very good. Yeah,
And the at sign
just-
beside the P says something too, I think.
Stop.
Yep, it says the word stop. Yep. Tim is sitting there shouting it out, and we're talking. Sorry.
I thought he was telling us to shut up, so I was just ignoring him.
Shift at.
That's a good one, Matt.
Shift
But I thought
at
it was kind of-
stops the scroll.
But it talks. I mean, this thing here. I don't know if any of you have ever had one of these in your hands or not. But this thing is heavy. It is built like a tank. I think it's almost as heavy as the CoCo itself.
I have not. I've typed on them at the show
Mhm.
at Rainbow Fest when it was announced, but I've never actually had one or had anybody near here with one. The only people here had, I think we had a couple HDLs and a couple Super Pros from Mark Data, and that's the only external keyboards I've actually had a chance to like lift separately and look at them up close. Otherwise, it's always been at the fest and they're inside CoCos, and you're allowed to like pick up the CoCo. So
Right.
Another
And this-
$20 to ship it, right?
Probably. Yeah. This. So the model number for it is KB 500, and I was doing a little bit of reading on it here.
Let's see the back.
Yeah, the ribbon comes out of the bottom and loops all the way up to the top.
Yeah, so the
again,
ribbon-
and
So when you have it in the CoCo, yeah, this would go this way and then plug in right here on the system board.
Hmm.
So it had the serial number and KB 500, and
Can't actually see that too well.
well, that's the older D&E boards with the actual connector.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
the pins.
yeah, so it doesn't use the ribbon. This would be the pin.
Do you know if it really works?
I haven't installed it yet, but if you read the reading in here, it probably does work because they're very proud of it. It says the KB uses capacitance foam switches,
Ooh.
which never give
Ooh.
keyboard bounce. So
You can still buy those, luckily.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, this thing is
foam
it's all
replacement
sealed
foam.
in here, so it's on a circuit board, and there's 4 screws. You could take the back of this thing off of here.
That's amazing that it's only 4 screws.
The capacitive foam
Metal
gets
breaks down.
breaks down. Yeah. So, but you can buy new foam things to stick in it.
The
Okay.
Franklin Ace computers use the same thing. That's
Yeah,
one
you're
of the
not
things.
you're not going to want to keep that. You'll have to send that off to here.
Oh,
okay.
in a climate controlled, warmer environment, yes.
Yeah, it would
Exactly.
be much better. Yeah,
Controlled humidity.
I think you should do that for the salvation of the item.
Right. Yeah, and it says that the KB is also the only keyboard that will fit all versions of the color computer, whether it's an A, B, C, D, E, F, ET, TDB 100, CoCo 2 A, and CoCo 2 B. So I don't know. They were pretty proud of their keyboard there. But no, I thought it was very interesting.
The color scheme would match a silver CoCo 1 quite well too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, with the darker keys and stuff and the
Yeah.
gray.
Yeah, the grayer keys and no whites
Mhm.
will look better on a silver.
Thank God they kept a red break key.
Yeah.
That's canon.
There you go.
Yeah, it is.
So with that, I thought maybe I'd share a few other ones that I have here. This one here,
Oh yeah, that's one I have.
That's the
in
Super
mine.
Pro by Mark Data.
this is the Mark Data Super Pro.
That
Yep.
one I've typed on. That was probably my favorite one to type on, except maybe the HJL.
Oh, I've got one of those.
That's a
I thought it was
tall
kind of
keyboard.
interesting because it does has these brackets here, so it goes all the way to the bottom of the case.
And it uses foam to keep it in place. Foam,
Yeah, but uses double-sided foam there.
right.
And like a lot of them, you have to. There's that center post that would be about right here. You have to cut that off in order for this to fit in place.
But
And
that thing
then-
felt so solid in the CoCo because of that whole mounting system that you showed.
Yeah, because it sets all the way down to
Around
the
and
bottom.
bounce. It was like solid. It felt like a real professional keyboard.
And you can
that
see here, there's this masking tape, which obviously it's deteriorated and stuff like that. But this would have been taped under the underside of the top case.
Yeah, it's double-sided tape.
Yep, to get it so it would set in here about like this. Then in the CoCo.
It looks like it was installed at one time, but you removed it.
Yes, it was installed in a CoCo, and I did remove it to put a different original keyboard back into that computer. But I wanted to kind of keep these all together in a group here. So, but it could be installed very easily.
Now, I'm not positive, but I believe the Dragon uses that same keyboard, or at least the same manufacturing.
It sure looks the same. There's no red brake key, though.
What's kind of interesting is that, and I'm not sure how clear this comes in, but all the keys have this little notch right here. And even on the sides, they have them. So it's like the keys all fit together like Legos, if that was kind of if there was an analogy. There's all the individual keys that are soldered onto the circuit board, but the spacing must be such that way they can all kind of interlock together to kind of form one solid.
That's a mechanical keyboard, isn't it?
I guess you'd call it like a mechanical key. I mean,
Very
each one of
much
these,
so. Look at those.
Yeah, it's a mechanical keyboard.
It's got a spring, I'm sure, and a.
Yep.
each one is individual.
That
So-
was
that
a
would-
great feeling keyboard. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
That
Several
one should
people on our
have
club had
the
I have
like
one.
2 wipers that the key separates, and then when you push the key down, the springs, the wipers being spring loaded, kind of push together.
Oh, okay.
They're
Inside.
the type that key
Yeah.
bounce.
It's like a clapper.
Yeah.
Copper clappers.
Hey, Brian,
Yes.
Can Make It says, remember the first step to admitting you have a problem.
Well, I just keep buying more stuff trying to solve the problem, and I don't know, and just never seem to get cured. I guess I don't know. But and then one other keyboard. And I think I might have shared this before, but anyway, it's still in the bag, so it's a little hard to see. But I think we've all seen this before. This was actually sold by Radio Shack. It was sold as a surplus, but it's the CoCo 3
$12.95.
keyboard. But it's the one that was the black, and I think we
Yeah, it's
talked
the
about-
deluxe CoCo original.
Deluxe
yeah, it was,
keyboard.
yeah,
So
deluxe. and stuff.
you've never touched that keyboard, have you?
Nope, it's still in the original. It still has original staples and everything, so it's still in its bag there. But I don't know if I'd shared that one or not before.
So if it wasn't for that little tear in the corner that would have 1980s air in it.
potentially, yes, yep. So, but I mean, nothing special about this other than the fact that it's it's the black.
Oh,
and like I
it's
said,
special.
it was used for the deluxe as
Yeah, it would have
Curtis
been the
mentioned.
deluxe, yeah.
There's a comment in the chat here from Tommy Gunnison said high-tech keyboard like on the Dragon 32, the D64 had Alps. And I think, was the Mark Data Alps? I can't remember.
I don't know. I don't think it had much written around it.
That would have been on each switch. So.
Wow, I can't remember.
And
It was a
that's
beautiful keyboard type on. That's all I can say. Like the mounting bracket made it so steady, it didn't shift or bounce around inside the case at all. So
Right.
it just felt beautiful. The type of solid.
yeah, very very heavy.
It kind of reminds you of the Model 1, doesn't it?
Yep. It does look like it, though. It doesn't have the key bounce problems the Model 1 had.
No.
Enhance.
Focus.
New tech, me tech, my
Yeah,
tech.
high tech is what it says there. It says high tech right there, but that's what it says on the circuit board. So I'm
Well,
not sure if
what's
that
it
was the
say under-
manufacturer.
What's it say underneath of it?
Corporation.
Oops, it's kind of weird to sit there and try to position this.
And a part number.
It's also
like.
blurry.
There,
Almost focuses.
Your table's focused well, but
It's Industries.
Industries.
Yeah, a high tech
It's like-
corporation on the bottom at
corporation.
107 yep 044G. So,
So
But,
maybe it'd be better if it's Brian Tech Corporation.
let's see here. Zoom in just a little bit there. Okay. Yeah, that was it with the keyboards that I wanted to share here. Or wait,
I get
did
72 different joysticks to show us or what?
no, but I guess I did have one more here. I'm not sure. I can't remember what the model was. This. I'm sorry. I was gonna look it up and I forgot. I forgot to write it down. Maybe you guys will recognize this one.
Oh, yeah, that's the first generation of what did they call it? The premium keyboard?
Yeah, I was gonna
By
look it up. and I
Micronics or something?
Yeah, this might have been the Micronics. I had a sticky note on it and I lost it.
Because Micronics made two different keyboards. The first one had the function keys all over the damn place, which is this one. You know, it's
Yeah.
like the clear keys way beside
Yeah.
the keyboard on the left, and there's F1, F2, F3, F4 is all scattered on the right hand side. And a lot of
Yeah,
people
that one's
complained about
weird.
the key layout. So they made another one that they charged an extra $10 for. Where they put the keys in proper spots.
Yeah, because is that the one that had them grouped together right there as a 4? Yeah, because
No,
like
the HL had F1, F2, F3, F4 on either side of the space bar. I'm trying to remember what
Okay.
their premium. That's.
The brake key is not red.
But this is the first generation by that company. Then they did a second one where they kind of shifted stuff around.
yeah, because this one here has the 2 here and the 2 there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's HL.
Flip it over.
You know, it says return instead of enter too.
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
The keys look a lot like the old teletype ones too, so that's probably why Apple always used return.
So how is that stuck on?
This one here.
No, the green board.
Oh yeah, it's a green circuit board, and the keys are soldered directly to it.
Oh,
not
okay.
sure if
So
that's
it
coming
doesn't unscrew.
No, the board is held in, and then it looks like every key is like snapped into this metal frame.
Oh, so that's metal. I remember seeing these at Fest, but I never really did much with them because this was not a keyboard layout I liked.
You know, I wonder if that fits in the hole of the cover of the model, the CoCo One, because it's awful short on the edges. Was there another piece that went over it?
There might have been. This is all I had for it right now.
Yeah,
But
I'll
this,
bet you.
but there's no ribbon cable. This, of course, uses the pins again.
Yeah, but if you look on the front of that thing compared to another keyboard, I don't think it's wide enough. The black.
Yeah, I don't have a case that's loose right now to check
Put
it.
another keyboard next to it and see if it's short.
That's probably not the actual bezel. That's the one that came with the key switches. And they
Yeah, see
probably
how
have
wide
a
that black is?
Yeah, they have another thing to go
There
over the top.
must be another.
Yep.
Piece. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like this would have been the bezel here for this one, and I mean, it doesn't quite
Yeah,
fit
well,
over it, but you can
no,
see
it-
that. But
Something
this
like
is where the edge of the case would have been right
Right,
here, or the opening on the CoCo One.
right. So you're missing a piece. You could probably
Yep.
make one up.
Yep.
With an X-Acto knife.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I forgot to look up the model. I had found one time. And the last, well, before I show the last thing, I was looking at some stuff here, and I guess I'm looking for some insight as to what this might be, or if it's even CoCo related. I'm not sure. So this is a 6-pin DIN that does go into the jack, like on a CoCo 3
Which jack?
Yeah.
Joystick?
joystick. I'm sorry. Yeah, the
Joystick.
joystick. Yep. But yet it has this 3-pin.
It's an audio cable for a weird cassette recorder. I've seen them.
I have one like that myself in my hand. It's a same exact thing as what you have, only it's 4 pins. Wait a minute. Oh,
Well, there is a 4-pin one, and that was used to plug into the cassette. So that way you could plug this into a PC or into like a even your phone or something like that, where you could play the audio directly in and make it like a digital cassette recorder of sorts. But this had a 5-pin, but it's used for like a different cassette recorder, huh? Is that what you guys were
Yeah,
thinking?
I came across that looking for cheap cassette cable alternatives for the CoCo,
Okay.
and it was for a tape recorder of some sort.
Okay.
But I remember it because it was so close to what I wanted, but just
Yeah,
not
but
quite.
The 6-pin's not gonna fit in the CoCo.
Right, but that
cassette
was what I
port.
was looking for, and I ran across this. And, that's interesting.
Yeah, I just
Yeah, it's
wasn't
got
sure.
that middle pin would indicate it's not for a CoCo 1 or 2.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have one that has 5 pins, but nothing in the middle.
Okay.
it looks
Yeah, it
just
was in
like
with some box
yours.
of it was in with the box of some other stuff, and it's like, I wasn't sure. So I thought maybe I would bring it up here on the show, and maybe someone might recognize it. So
Well, in the chat, Paul Fiscarelli says digitizing cable for the joystick port.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there was. I forgot about that. There was some digitizing programs that use the 6-bit analog to record sound on the CoCo.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, don't throw it away.
Right.
Yeah,
But you wouldn't need
you'll definitely want to
wouldn't
do
need
a pinout probe, see what those 3 pins are connected to.
Right. If they would go to the X or the Y of the joystick. Yep.
Pinout probe.
Yep. Okay. I will do that. Okay, and then lastly, what I wanted to show you guys. So a few weeks back, I showed that that Color Computer 2 kit.
Yeah.
That was
You
disassembled.
put it all together?
I put it all together. No, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. I did not put it together. There, I don't know if you guys. I don't know if you guys saw some of the comments on Facebook. There was quite a response on Facebook. People really seemed to enjoy that.
Is that a
So-
T1?
What's that?
Is that a T1 CoCo 2 right there?
Yeah, this here is a. I did want to share this though, but I thought maybe I'd make a little bit of a joke out of it. So yeah, this is a 3127B.
Yeah, I got one of those. Two of them.
And it was in the box. I know this probably isn't. Let's see here if I can.
Is that a genuine badge on the front? That
Yes.
something
Yep, that's
something
what they did.
different about it.
Yeah, it's instead of Radio Shack, it's
That's a
Tandy.
CoCo 2B style one. It's got
2B.
candy and
So this one
Dimensions.
here, yeah, I had the box with it. It had all the foam
Yeah, yeah.
and the. Let me grab the rest of it here. So I mean, it was all in really good shape. I mean, the manuals were in the bag. I'm not even sure if this was had been used yet.
Let's see
Oh,
the
but-
box.
And it matches the true test of quality. The RF can is still shiny inside the CoCo.
Yep.
It's still, yes, it's not rusted and
It's not
everything.
vertical, it's horizontal.
so
Low
and,
humidity environment. That means it's a US version
so there's your the video cable.
or
Yeah.
Korean version.
And let's see here. Let me stretch just a minute. So,
You're gonna
and the
stick-
and the box was a little faded, but overall it was in great shape. But
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
it was kind of weird is that now this does have the matching serial number. It has the right part number on the side,
but it
but
shows
like-
melted keys.
but it shows the melted keys, which we kind of talked about that, where it's like
Yeah.
Radio Shack had like 20 pallets of boxes. And it's like, well, we need to use these up before we start making new boxes or
Right.
something. But
Right?
but it has the right serial number on the back and the right part number. I know I'm kind of not showing that very well, but the box was in good shape. So
That's
I just wanted to. This one was in such nice shape and everything. I just wanted to kind of get that one to add to my collection as far as a boxed system goes.
Yeah, when you turn that on and put it up on the screen, you're not gonna get any yellow on the side
Okay.
because it's, looks brand new.
So really good shape. But I thought you guys might get a little laugh out if I said I actually assembled that one thing there. There was a lot
Yeah.
of people. There was a lot of
Yeah.
comments. There was people thought it'd make a good video to assemble it and everything, and I appreciate that. But with the history of that kit and everything, it's not going to get assembled. And at the end of the day, you're just ending up with a CoCo 2, which there's
Now, hold on there for a second. While you
Mhm.
got that there, does anybody know what that punch out looks like? That punch out thing's for over there in the corner?
Oh, the upper right
cable,
corner
upper
then?
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
what is that for?
It's for a power cable.
It already has one.
Got to be the
Oh.
alternate AC cord.
Yeah, maybe one for Europe or something.
yeah,
you
where
have to have
the
a ground.
where it would have came out of the bottom there, and it would
Have
have
we
been a
ever
larger.
seen one that's used?
On a CoCo 1 I have.
This is a 2.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never seen one on a CoCo 1, CoCo 2 being used.
Right. I'd like to see one that's used.
yeah, I wonder if you're right. If maybe it was used in like the UK or something.
Well,
you
if you
think a
run,
mold costs so much, you're going to go on and do anything you can think of in
Yeah.
the mold. And then
Hey,
if you don't need it, you don't need it.
Brian, you have a lot of CoCo 2s, I would assume. Have you ever seen one that's used a cord out of there?
Not
and
that
it
not
comes
that I
out in the
recall.
right angle?
No, nope, I have
Me
not.
neither. Nope. Maybe that was an option for,
Maybe they never ever
video,
used it.
video
Yep.
out there.
So, but I just wanted to share that with you. It was a nice, clean,
Yeah, very
nearly
nice.
nearly new CoCo. So,
Under 1,000 for that one.
right? So, but no, that's all I wanted to share today. I mean, you guys might enjoy the keyboard tour.
All right.
Speaking of keyboard tour, oh, go ahead.
Brian Weasler's retirement plan is looking healthy and active.
Before we go on to our next presentation, I thought I'd show the Micronics ads for both the keyboard that you showed there plus their sequel. So actually, while you guys were showing stuff off here, I actually found them on the archive. So just a sec, share.
Well, it almost looks like a black computer, don't it?
It's
Oh,
not a
okay,
very good
Micron-
picture.
Yeah, it's not the best
Micronics.
scan, but
Okay, so yeah, the Micronics. Okay, that was the last keyboard that I showed. Well, now
Yeah,
I
'cause you
wonder
can
if
see
it's-
on the right here. I don't know if you can see the mouse cursor I've got here, but you can see the F1, F2, F3, F4 all clamored around the return key instead of the enter key, etc. So that's the version you just showed, which is the one that came out within late 82, early 83, I believe. And then the sequel one where they kind of moved around was called the premium keyboard. And that actually shifted some stuff around, like the arrows are where they're supposed to be, and the F keys are way over here, away from the critical ones that everybody is used to being in a certain spot. Unfortunately, I can't zoom the scan up because the scan's pretty crappy, but
yeah,
that was two made by the same company about 6 months apart.
That
Micronics.
must be
Okay.
Josie.
But yeah, small keyboard with a big filler plate around it to make it fit.
I'm kind of happy about the positioning of that computer right now.
Yeah, we all understand.
And we're talking about Alps key switches. That's actually what this uses here.
I'm
Okay.
gonna buy
Yep.
one.
Same as the Dragon.
Because
And
they've
here
been
is
used
the
to
software
support all
enhance.
kinds
I don't
of-
know. Did you get the keyboard utility with it too, Brian?
I might have that. I just had these all I had these all bubble wrapped in a box that I kind of been keeping my keyboards together. But I don't know if I had the utility though, but I think I did see it on the archive, if I remember right. I can't remember.
Yeah, because they're mentioning the VersaKey software here adds auto key repeat, N key rollover, and type head. F1 becomes define, F4 becomes control, and you can actually create macros of up to 80 characters each using the keyboard drivers. So
Oh, very cool.
Josie's a grandmother now.
Right?
Yeah, I thought about sharing some of these on Facebook and then encouraging other people to post pictures of other ones that they have, because I mean obviously we're what Curtis just showed there. There are other keyboards that are out there that were made, and just see if people might have some other ones to share.
my favorite keyboard hack still has got to be the one in Color Computer News 1982. It was a Model 3 keyboard with a mere keypad, and you actually had to cut the black surround on the CoCo 1 case top half to get it to fit, but you had a full keyboard in there with a mere keypad.
Oh wow, nice.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted somebody else there.
Yeah, I can't remember, but I was looking at white melted keyboards, and there seems to be a keyboard that I saw recently on somebody's site. I don't even know if it was on the CoCo group, but the keyboard was shaped a little different than melted, but it was the same profile. You know, not really the tall one.
Not a full travel like the later CoCo 2.
Have you ever seen those, you guys? It's kind of they're kind of U-shaped.
Only after a fire.
No.
Maybe it's just a regular keyboard, but really melted because somebody left it on the dash on their car or something. I don't know. I haven't seen. Mind you, if it's fairly subtly different, maybe I just didn't notice.
Yeah. You know what? Sometime I'll grab it and put it next to a regular melted one to see if anybody has ever noticed. Because it's another keyboard that I'm not aware of.
I mean, it's not like Radio Shack lowest bid those things. Let's see. Next up, let's see. I had Tim on my list.
Hey, everybody. So let me share my screen. Where's my thingy? Okay. I wanted to show something that I don't know about all of you guys, but I love the updates page for.
Oh, you're breaking up, Tim.
Wow.
I thought it was me.
He fell off. He fell off the continental plate there.
Archive. He's always Guillaume is always adding stuff and. How about now?
Yeah, we can hear you
Can
now.
A little better now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not really doing anything different.
You're
Can
totally
you see?
silent.
I wanted to show off this color computer to the prospective Rainbow contributor. I hadn't seen this before. It came across my desk a few months ago. I scanned it and sent it up to the archive. But if you were wanting to write an article for the Rainbow, you would send off for some information from the company about how they wanted you to submit the article. And I just think this is a fascinating document that everybody should take a look at.
I'm trying to remember if I got one of these when I submitted programs for the 2 contests that I placed in, because I think they sent this with the, we accepted your entry thing. I'll have to check. I don't remember.
That's all.
So did you send it in?
Yep, it's on the archive right now. You can see it on the front page where he lists new stuff to be viewed.
Now, question for you,
Cool.
Tim. I also noticed they had the 80 micro, the same thing, basically the contribution guidelines for the 80 micro. Was that you too, or is that somebody else?
I sent that in as well. Basically, I got a collection from a guy, and apparently he wanted to write magazine articles, and so he sent off for both of these info sheets.
Do you know if he ever did get published?
No, I don't believe he did.
No, I thought you knew by somebody famous. Then never mind.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't somebody famous.
That's one of maybe it was Marty, but Marty would have been writing way before that already.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, we're all encouraged to go out and read it, but was there anything that jumped out at you when you read it that you thought was kind of unusual from a formatting perspective, or?
Yeah, they wanted bug-free programs. I don't know what the heck they were smoking. But...
Yeah, there's a bit in the 80 micros where it says, "Please send in your bug-free programs." But things that I think are interesting is if the program is longer than 10 lines, you have to submit it on disk or tape. They do not want to type in programs.
Yeah, so there went my 32K graphic adventure game I was going to send them.
Make you burst out your dot matrix forms too.
What was that?
They make you burst out your dot matrix forms too. So you have to take off the dots and split the pages and
Tractor feeds.
Double space your lines.
how dare
I do
they.
like the sentence there in the middle there where it talks about using the good old KISS adage there to keep it simple, stupid applies.
Anyway,
That tells you what they thought of their people.
Yeah.
so everybody should always keep an eye on the front page to the CoCo archive. There's always cool stuff showing up.
Yeah.
Now we should forward these off to Glenn's side so they can actually make a guideline for submitting stuff to the GCC newsletter.
There you go. It says on there no self. What do they call it when the program writes
Promotion?
itself?
No self-addressed.
Self-modifying code.
Does it really say that?
No.
Oh,
Didn't you read it all?
no, I haven't read it all.
That's how you find out.
I've actually been working on some copy protection schemes, and I've come across some self-modifying code recently, and so I thought that would be an interesting find.
So just before the article went away, I caught the line asking no bugs, please.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's part of the learning experience. Didn't Rainbow want you to learn?
You mean we couldn't get Rainbow to actually debug our programs for us?
They wouldn't
No,
have
there was
picked-
a company that advertised to do that, though. That was their whole scheme.
they
You'd
wouldn't have
send in
picked-
your buggy programs, other people send in the buggy programs, you exchange tapes.
they
That was
wouldn't have-
advertised for about a good year.
But they wouldn't take Megabug then.
See what he did there?
Well, especially after Spider Attack happened, but then the Spider side. But yeah, there was I'm trying to remember the name of the company, but it had a half-page ad and it said bugs in big bold letters, and then explained the whole scheme where you would just exchange programs, and basically the scheme was that all these other programs would take a fresh look of eyes on your code, figure out your bugs for you. You would do the same for them, and then everybody would be able to sell these bug-free programs and make tons of money. That was the whole thing. I don't think I ever saw one thing sold by them.
It was a
Quite
good
scheme.
idea.
It was innovative. I mean, that was the early 80s. That was the Wild West. Like that's CoCo 1 and 1 days before the CoCo 2 and 3. But yeah, there was a lot of interesting things that people were trying. I mean, some things stuck, some things didn't, obviously. But that would have been pretty a fascinating thing to see if it actually had worked. Oh, I was going to ask Tim too. Considering this the new STC updates we're getting into the news, have you made a new version of the manual to cover that too? Or?
Yeah, it's posted on the Blogspot, on Darren's Blogspot page, and it's also on the Color Computer Archive. I was going to mention it when you got to the news item.
Okay. Well, we'll go in detail. I just wanted to catch up, I forgot to ask you.
Didn't Rainbow have the one-liners?
1 and 2 liners. Yes.
Yeah, I always wanted to send something in that actually didn't mean anything, and then see, take a
Who
look.
caught it?
You see?
And the nice thing, Ron, is you wouldn't have to send it a tape or disc because it was less than 10 lines, so you could make them
There
type
you
it in.
go.
Ron, don't poke the Lonnie. Nothing good will happen.
Okay.
Well, speaking of Ron, we have
Oh.
a. Okay.
Man, you cut it short. Oh, man.
Oh, okay. I could have let it go on longer, but
All right, so I have to slide over because it's on the other side of the room here.
Just like Ron itself, it was long enough.
Can you see it? Am I up?
Yes, I see a
Yep.
Ghostbuster.
Okay. Do you guys remember that?
Yes,
Back in the day?
that was by what was the guy's name?
1985.
Fred Skirbo.
Yeah. And the thing is, doesn't matter how many times you play it, it still did the same thing. It didn't change. And the kids would love to watch it be created because it, it doesn't.
Yeah, because he did a
disappear.
movie theme one. He did a couple Rock Fest ones where he did rock logos. I actually stole a couple of his and actually animated them to go along with the tape with Motoron audio on to play along my own crappy music video.
Pretty cool. So let's see what else. This is what I wanted to show. This ultra compact, minimalistic 6809 computer on a keychain.
Nice.
Wasn't there talk of doing something like this at the fest as your badge at one point?
Oh, that would be
Yes,
cool.
there was.
Yeah. But why do they call it minimalistic? Because it doesn't, all it has is like a port for the screen. I don't know. I didn't read it. There it is. Interesting, huh?
Tiny.
Yeah.
Not enough room for a keyboard.
Yeah. Look at that. There's another one.
That's even too small for an MC10 keyboard.
Yeah.
Have a real-time clock.
Got a USB socket. What else do you need?
Yeah. Really.
That's true. That's true.
Okay. What do I do now? Go back. No.
Close this one and it'll go back to your close this
I-
tab and
I-
you'll go back to your main
I don't-
page.
I don't. There's so much crap
Which
Very,
tab is
very,
this
very
one?
top, the tabs with the little X there, the two tabs you got on the top.
over here.
Yeah, there.
Okay. Next, this is $40,000. Why, I don't know. You see it?
Oh, it's 40,500 now.
Yeah.
Actual paper. Cool.
Does anybody know what this is?
Can you zoom it up a bit there? Internet Ready Interactive Radio Shack catalog. I don't know anything about that.
Like an internal document or something. Eh?
Yeah, and
And hardcover bound?
There are some people out there that I've seen
must
that are
be the back.
there are some people though that are taking catalogs and putting them into hardbound covers. I'm not sure if this is actually a real Radio Shack thing or if it's just something that people were doing, but this looks like maybe like it might be Radio Shack, but I've seen some stuff out there before that people just they basically took it and put it into a book.
yeah, it says make offer.
Right?
I mean, what it's claiming
Well,
here is that
it-
it's going to be electronic internet thing, isn't it? Am I reading
Yeah.
that cover right?
I just don't get that.
Well, those look like your bog standard catalog pages.
Right. Catalog in a binder. Right?
So,
But that cover was mentioning
Internet something.
or interactive online or something like that. Yeah.
This ain't that. This is just a catalog.
what is that C thing? It looks like a musical thing, and then there's like a code.
That was their
Yeah.
QCat. Radio Shack had a barcode
Yeah.
reader that plugged into your PS2 port.
Oh,
They
yeah.
ported everything
So-
back home. It was like the
That's-
first
and that-
spyware.
And that might
Yep.
be what they mean by internet ready, because the
Maybe
idea was
that's
the idea was that you could scan that barcode
Ooh,
and it would take you out to the
QCat code.
internet.
Like a QR code today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and the Q cats were interesting. They were plastic molded. They looked like a cat with the scanner coming out of the mouth.
Oh,
Yeah, I've
Right.
got one around here somewhere. It was
Who
really
knows?
tacky.
Yep.
So the guy doesn't know what he has, does he?
Didn't look like a cat to me.
But
But
if
a
you go back
comment
to
from
the-
Mark Siegel in the chat here says we all got hardbound covered catalogs as managers.
Oh,
Huh.
very nice.
Oh.
Okay, cool.
Catalog.
Well, I saw that it said printed by Bobby Jackman.
It's
Presented to
Presented
Bobby
to-
Jackman.
It's
Presented
Presented. Okay, I couldn't quite focus on
Yeah.
that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Strange, huh?
Well, that's cool though.
I don't know if it's worth 40 grand though.
No.
Right. Unless you are Bobby Jackman.
Maybe
you should get the
three
whole store for
Cocos.
that price.
this John guy posted to my thing here and put this Christine up that he did by software. And I thought it was pretty cool. He had to work pretty hard on that one.
Yeah, this reminds me of Rainbow, and we kind of have a page in our Discord for that too. But when Rainbow had the art gallery, I can't remember what they specifically called it, but they had these competitions that people could place, and then later on they had a CoCo 3 division for the higher color stuff. But people did some pretty amazing artwork in that stuff.
Yeah, I did some my usual artwork stuff. This is what he posted. He did Return of the Jedi here.
And he did some animated ones too, didn't he? He had some video ones.
Something.
Ron, we just got to get you doing Ford Mustang stuff. That would be preferred.
No.
Oh wow, he turned on the echo for that.
Not that I'm biased or anything.
It's going to do that noise.
This kind of reminds me of that story we covered a couple months ago where that guy had dug out some of his old software from the 80s of doing all the Star Trek stuff. Animations and little mini stories.
This takes a while. This one here. I'll move it along. I don't know why it goes so long.
I guess drawing in the background.
Maybe.
I think it's supposed to be playing music too, but you got it muted.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll have to go to Ron's garage and take a look. Okay. I did the Christine thing a while back. Just the logo from the hood, They took that V8 symbol from the hood. And I think that's from the movie or something. I don't know. I can't remember. Did a long time ago. There's a $3.99 CoCo, and we had a little discussion about, whether it's a CoCo 2 or whether it's a CoCo 1 with the white.
It's a CoCo 1 64K.
Yeah, but in Australia, it's a CoCo 2.
Yeah.
Weird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think Nick can verify that because I think he actually has one.
So is the defining thing that kink where it's a hard, crisp line across the top of the upper deck there, if you will?
Nah.
And then the CoCo 2 is rounded?
Nope.
But no, it's a full size CoCo 1 case. Like it's the full length, and a CoCo 2 is quite shrunk.
I think you're thinking of this TDP. That's
Okay.
smooth.
The
But
edge,
the
yeah.
2 is not, or 1.
Like if you color that silver, it looked like a CoCo 1 is the same size.
Right. And then there's my Black Beauty. Back in the 90s, it was yellow. So I painted it black with stove paint. And it's lasted all this time without, there's a couple of little corners that are white, but it's lasted a long time. I was probably one of the first guys to ever do sacrilege and paint the case. And then there's this one. Is that awesome or what?
Is that yours or is that Terry Steggy's?
That's Terry's.
Yeah,
With the custom keyboard that Ed Snyder did.
Yeah, take a look at that, baby. Well, he didn't color in the keys, so you have to kind of look at an angle to see that.
Yeah.
You gotta be able to type.
Well, the thing is, Ed's keys are laser etched, and laser etching creates black. Well, if you already got black keys,
got black on black.
It's kind of like that bit from Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah, but it would be cool. You have a black controller, right? A black drive for it, black monitor,
black mouse.
Yeah, everything's really slick. Anyways, then I got this. I was thanked for something, and the guy put it in code, and I thought, wow, my name will live on in code.
I'm trying to remove my name from code so people don't blame me for all the bugs.
Yeah, there's a Corinthian leather Cordoba. And that's about it, guys. I did Tron. It's been a while since I've been on. I found this one. This is a Jeep thing. If you turn it upside down and flip it, you get beer. I thought that was funny. And it was my little grandson. That's it, guys. Stop share. Thanks. Been a while since I've been on.
Had a bit of catching up to do.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any presentations? Rick, you're probably just busy getting ready for the fest at this point, I'm imagining.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Ken, you returned from a holiday, so I guess you dropped a video. It's not CoCo related, but
Ken was looking real comfortable on his chair there.
Yeah, geez, wake me up. Thanks. I was going to drop a video yesterday, but my computer updated and crashed my editing program and just about half the programs on my computer. So
I had
didn't get out.
for the first time in I think maybe years, I had a blue screen today. Where it has a smile face or an upside down smile face.
Right.
Yeah. And it appeared and then it went away and then rebooted. And it's like, it never happened. Or did it?
That's different.
Yeah.
So
I think it's just stringing you along at this point.
Okay.
So
Pretending to work.
shall we do a commercial break?
Sure, then we can get on the game on results after that.
And then
If we have to.
And then we have a visit from Grimes today.
Ooh.
Okay.
So
Good
that should
time to
be
go
interesting.
wee.
Okay, let's see. Where's my buttons? Here we go.
The CoCo Nation Show is an unscripted, live, and interactive broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own, and not necessarily those of the CoCo Nation Show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds are encouraged, and a sense of humor is recommended. Thank you for being a part of the CoCo Nation.
The CoCo Nation Show would like to thank the following patrons: Alex Gayer, Brendan Donahue, Brian Walsh, Brian Weasler, Kieran Inscombe, Daddy Burrito, Diego BF109, Dinty's Hideaway, Don Barber, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Justin Larson, Ken Reichard, Mike Rayburn, Patrick Euland, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, R. Allen Murphy, Retro Tech Time, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Steve Batson, Terry Steege, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom S., Tony C., William Maything. Thank you so much, patrons.
Again.
And now, CoCo Thoughts by Samuel Gimes. I want to shoot all the bad enemies. Won't ask them questions, don't care about answers. Show my shot and show them it. What's the word? Burns. When it's the end, wouldn't I love to destroy that Zeppelin above? Out of the sky, they know that I destroyed their world.
I honestly didn't think his singing talents could get any worse, but I was wrong.
He's been working on it.
I see Ron took off before
Yeah,
that
Ron,
started.
you timed that perfectly.
Okay.
Auto tune? What's that?
Auto detune in this case.
Welcome everybody to the CoCo Nation Game On Challenge of the Week results video. This week we played Aerial. We had a total of 14 players. Exile in Paradise, 2,800. Mark B, 3,000. Canadian Retro Thing, 6,000. Coco Man, 7,600. Sloopy Malibu, 7,850. Ed Rhodes, 8,500. Sabhead, 8,600. Jim Rye, 16,500. Rich N, 17,050. Mr. Dave 6309, 20,400. Shanley, 30,150. L. Curtis Boyle, 41,250. Tasman, 61,250. And the number one score this week was Buck Owens with 86,150 scored on an MC10. Thanks
Wow.
everybody that played, and we'll see you again next week.
The CoCo Nation salutes Buck Owens.
Well, there we go. Buck definitely won that one quite soundly.
So he played this on a real MC10 with an MC10 keyboard or on an emulator?
On a real MC10 with an MC10 keyboard.
Oh, I
He
have to give him
made the
props for that.
comment
Trying to use that keyboard to control
he
aerial.
made the
Holy
comment
crap.
that even though there are keys marked with arrows, it doesn't mean that they're good to play with.
I'm impressed. I wouldn't have attempted that.
And the photo he posted was the TV screen with his MC10 right there. So,
You know what's scary is if you would have played on a regular CoCo, you might have had a higher score.
Yeah.
oh, probably.
How many people played the CoCo 1 and 2 version? How many played the CoCo 3, or do you know, Ken?
People weren't saying that, so.
I know in the live stream I was playing the CoCo 3 one, but most I think were playing the CoCo 1 and 2.
Yeah, I was playing the CoCo 3 myself.
Well, you and Sloopy snuck in a couple other platforms too.
Yeah, Sloopy snuck in the Atari version, and I snuck in the ColecoVision version. Because of
Now,
course,
did you
this
find
is
those easier or harder to control than the CoCo one?
well, definitely the ColecoVision one was easier because it plays with the joysticks. So
Oh, we should mention Mr. Dave's little patch too.
yeah, and Mr. Dave had a patch to play with the joystick, which I didn't actually find out about until after the show last night or 2 nights ago. So I didn't actually get to try it, but
Yeah, I think he only patched the CoCo 1-2 version though. I don't think he patched the
Okay.
CoCo 3 version. So
But yeah, of course, this is one of those Inafuto games, which is available on a number of different systems. So,
over 60 last time I checked, including the
Yeah.
Tier City Model 1 and 3.
yep. So, obviously, it's a new game, so there's no reviews of it or anything like that, other than I have seen a few people play these games in on various systems in different Twitch streams and stuff, and generally they're all quite impressed with them and they enjoy playing them. So
Yeah, considering it's a generic cross-platform system, I think they call it CATE, C-A-T-A. I can't remember what that stands for.
something like
But
that,
it's
yeah.
kind of like a tile-based C-compiled type thing, kind of like CMOC, I guess, except for cross-platform. And it does use the hardware to its advantage. So if you have sprite chips, it'll use them. If you have a sound chip, it'll use that for multi-voice, etc.
Mhm.
On the CoCo, they didn't bother trying to write some background IRQ routine or something. So you basically get single voice.
Yeah, it's
you know,
basically
music.
the lowest common denominator of each system.
On the CoCo 3, at least, we got the 16 colors. It doesn't use 320, though. I think it uses 256. I think he did that mainly to get it to fit in the memory easier. So he does 256 by 192 16 color, which is about 24K, which leaves a fair bit of room for the program and its assets.
Anyways, for those of you that didn't play it, it's basically just a game where you're flying and you've got different airplanes coming at you from the front and behind, and cannons below you firing at you, and you just have to blow everything up.
Yeah, missiles launch at you. You can get free men, little power-ups you can
Yeah,
shoot
there's
something that's occasionally get.
rockets that shoot up in front of you, and if you shoot them, sometimes they'll give you a free man while they're in the air.
And as bosses, which
Yeah,
are these big,
Zeppelins.
dirigible Zeppelin blimp type things. And as you progress further in levels, you get more and more of them. I got up to the point where you have 4 at once. I think I saw some video. Was it Bucks that was up to 6 at once or something?
When I was playing on the ColecoVision, I got up to one that had 6.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my score on the ColecoVision was much, much, much higher than my CoCo 3 score.
I did like the flight mechanics, like the way you could change your speed when you're dive bombing down, so you could actually go ahead, straight down at an angle, or pull back a bit, so you can actually like strafe the bottom to get rid of the missile launchers and the cannons and stuff. And
Yeah, it
I mean, for a
basically gave you-
tile-based game, it actually plays pretty darn good, I have to say.
it gave you 8 direction movement, and so playing on the keyboard, if you just held down two keys, you would go diagonally, like down and forward. It would go diagonally forward.
Yeah. No, I was quite impressed. That's actually out of the Inafuda ones I've tried so far. I think that's probably my favorite one so far.
It is a good one.
Played that well. It's not like, right home super smooth graphics or anything like that, but it plays well. And the ramping up of difficulty is gradual enough. You can improve as you go. You start getting more planes coming from behind. So if you're sweeping left to avoid the ones in front, you might just get ran into.
And they do start shooting at you more and more the higher level you get up. So
yeah.
And they will shoot diagonally or in front of you, or in front or diagonally up at you.
And then timing when you get to the boss stage, like after you have more than one boss is actually a kind of a safe zone at the very top. You can just hammer on it. But once you start getting the multiple levels of them vertically, then you have to start dodging all the shots as they're coming in. So I quite liked it.
Good. So did anybody else play this on the panel here? Anybody?
David Ladd, did you?
I did.
What'd you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I can control it pretty well. Still didn't get past level 1.
Did you try it with the joystick patch from Mr. Dave, or did you just play the keyboard controls?
Just the keyboard controls. So I didn't think about doing the 2 keys at once, though.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier if you do the 2 keys at once, because then you can fly in over top of like the cannons and stuff and come at the.
It's like having a car with more than one gear.
Yeah.
Oh. Cars have gears?
Who knew? I quite liked it. That's we've covered how many of the Inafuda games now?
This is, I think, just the second one we've done.
And I definitely ranked it a little bit better than that one for me personally. I prefer the flying games. It's kind of like a loosely based on Scramble, I guess is probably the closest.
Yeah. The first one we played was loosely based on Mappy.
Yeah.
And then this one's loosely based on Scramble. So.
But it's nice because, I mean, it's nice to see that, a cross-platform engine came out with 11 games the last couple of years for the CoCo 3. But the fact that it's coming out for even more obscure systems like the MC10, I mean, that's probably the biggest single author besides Jim Gary of, games for the MC10. And these are all high-res games, with some, compiled assembly language, not raw assembly. But now that Jim's starting to use Greg Dion's compiler, we'll start seeing more stuff, I think, from him that is a bit more arcade quality, but I don't think he's done too much with the higher res screens on the MC10. So this is kind of nice having a whole library basically overnight.
Mm-hmm. So does anybody have any, well, obviously just a couple of us played it, but for tips and tricks of playing the game? Definitely.
My tip is on the blimps, like on the boss stage. If you go right to the very top of the screen, any blimp on the top row can't hit you.
Yeah, they can only fire up diagonally and straight in front of them.
Yeah. So that's one thing. So basically, if you can take care of the blimps lower than that, if you have like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 first by doing the dodging round, you can kind of relax and just shoot up to the top and just start.
Well, even on the multiple ones, you can always find a spot where they can't shoot you.
Yeah. Yeah. If you place yourself vertically just right.
Yeah.
As long as you take care of the other things that are like, if there's any ground-based guns still around, they can still shoot at you too. So you have to kind of clear them up first.
Yeah.
And then you try to find the secret spots or safe spots, I should say, for the blimps.
And definitely the diagonal movement helps a lot. Mark.
Yeah. There's a big tip for Mark.
Okay.
Makes it a heck of a lot easier.
Been good to know that Thursday.
Ken, you said you did not play the joystick version, and obviously Mark didn't either. I didn't either, to be honest. I did play, not during the stream, but I did play the CoCo 1 and 2 version versus the CoCo 3 version. I didn't really notice any big difference in the controls. Just the graphics look better because it's more colorful. Did you notice any difference?
I didn't try the CoCo 1 and 2 version. I've been kind of getting settled back in this week, so.
And Mark, did you try both versions or just the CoCo 1 and 2 or just the CoCo 3 version?
I did both. The week before I did the CoCo 2 version where I got my high score.
Okay.
The CoCo 3 version to me seemed a little slower, probably because it had higher resolution graphics.
Yeah, the screen's literally 3 times the size and only double the speed of the CoCos. So That would make sense.
Well, let's take a look at some of our footage from Thursday night.
Oh, there's that really irritating game on the screen too.
Yes, that was our other game of the week, which is the Nick Marenti's game.
Yeah, and you
Oh,
can
it's a
see
good one.
Jason, the Coco Man, got confused. He thought they said Nutroid, not Neutroid. So
Yeah.
he's playing his brother's game.
Now, during the stream, we did have some definitely comments about Neutroid from people.
You don't say.
I didn't dislike it as much as some people. I mean, it's a hard game and takes some getting used to.
Requires skill.
See, that's why I had so much trouble with it.
It requires a proper gameplay too. That's one other thing it could use.
But yeah.
Now, Nick,
so-
we were kind of discussing the pre-show. We're going to wait till this segment to talk about it. I think the concept behind Neutro 2 is good. The only issue I have is that there's a couple things that are kind of against the player. And I think the fact that there's two things that are cut against them, it should have been just one, and you could pick which one you wanted to keep or not. One is the inability to reverse direction. You have to just do 90-degree turns.
Yeah, that would make it easy then.
It would make it really easy because
Yeah.
if you miss the dot, you would just then reverse and get it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember, what was the other one, Ken? We discussed
The
during
other one
live
that you
stream.
didn't like, you wanted to be able to stop.
Yeah, that would make it easy
Yeah.
too.
One or two, like don't do both of those. That's
But
too easy.
if you put either of those in, I think the game would just become way too
Yeah,
easy.
it becomes too easy. Yeah, yeah. Now the whole idea was you're not actually directly controlling the neutroid. It's an atomic particle. It's just free flowing. You're controlling some magnetic influence to steer it. So you can't just stop it or go left or reverse or whatever. You're not directly controlling it.
I
That was the whole
understand
idea.
the flimsy
is the re-
science behind it. That wasn't my complaint. The background
Well, the
story is
thing is,
fine. It just
in-
control wise, it gets to be with both of those against you. That it gets to be a bit much, and it just I didn't find it fun. I found it frustrating.
Well, and like
Even
I
when
said,
I
it
got
does
to the
take
second level,
skill.
it was like, yeah, so what?
It does take skill.
So you keep telling me. Yet he refused
That's
to come
right.
on and play it to show us skill. But
I have played it. I just haven't had time lately. I wanted to play it. It's been a while since I played it.
And let's not forget that programs are often not the best players of games.
their own
Wow.
games are usually pretty good.
If you want to see skill, wait until Buck Owens puts a video up.
I will say Sloopy is a huge fan of this game,
Yeah.
but
As
there's
he
no
said,
accounting for
it's a
people's
timing
taste.
game.
Yeah, partly timing, but also, like I said, the fact that you if you try to turn and you just catch it at the wrong part, it just cascades into the wall. And it felt like there wasn't enough leeway for the player, I guess. It would be like Pac-Man with dip switches on the worst setting type thing. It's kind of what it felt like to me. It felt like the difficulty started a bit too much at the beginning, and it kind of dissuades a player from wanting to bother to try to get better at it. That's what I was feeling. That's why I switched back to aerial after a bit.
Well, actually, the original one, the Neutroid 2 original, was even harder, really. And this Neutroid 2015, I did make it a bit easier.
Maybe that's why I finally made it to level 2 for the first time
Yeah,
ever.
two-
Because I did play
two's
back in
pretty
the old
lame.
days. And it was just like, geez.
2 is pretty lame still, but I mean, this was my very first CoCo game. that
Yeah, and I
ever
mean, one thing I
created.
did mention that the graphics, the sound's awesome on it for a CoCo 1 and 2 game at the time. Because you wrote this in what, 84?
84. Well, I mean, I had my first computer was a Model 1 TRS-80. So along the way, I was creating games. And Neutroid, the original Neutroid, I wrote for the Model 1. And so when I actually moved to a CoCo back in '84, I decided to do Neutroid, but because of the semi-graphics modes and things, I couldn't quite do it exactly. I mean, you had to follow the rules by which how semi-graphics works. So I decided to change the game a bit as well. So hence I called it Neutroid 2. And then 2015 is just a fix-up or a
mainly to get
change.
the score and stuff to be seen.
Well,
on
the
3.
main thing was, because it wouldn't work on a CoCo 3, and I just fixed that. But the thing is, when I did get the CoCo 2 or CoCo, well, it was a CoCo. My first CoCo was a CoCo 2. The thing I was reluctant to go to the CoCo 2 anyway. From the TRS-80, I was looking at all these other machines because by 1984, the CoCo looked a bit antique to me. You know, the graphics and everything just really, compared to what else was out there, the Commodore.
Yeah, because by that time the Commodore 64 had already been out for a couple of years. So
most other computers were more colorful, and we had this color computer, and really the worst thing about it was color. It didn't really, because remember, P Mode 4 on PAL over here in Australia was black and white. There was no color. So, all these games that you saw ads for, Sailor Man and Zaxxon and all that with the blue and the red in the colors.
Yeah, just like vertical stripes of gray of
they
white.
Were terrible. They were smudged. So the last thing the color computer was to me was color. Color just lacked. But the color computer had there was two things I liked about it at the time. One was it had a much better basic than what the Commodore 64 had. It was a very good basic, and I was very, very impressed with that compared to most other machines at the time. And two, from a game designer point of view, it had a very good distribution outlet in that back then, I think the Tandy stores or Radio Shack stores, there was about, I think at that time, around 500 to 600 stores Australia-wide. And I thought, well, any game I write on a CoCo would straight away go to 600 stores. And I thought that was a big bonus. Whereas the Commodore 64 or whatever other one, there were dealers everywhere. And there was certainly not 600 dealers. So I thought, well, that's a big advantage in the color computers for the color computer. The only thing is I just hated the color. So when I sat down to write a game, my first game on the color computer, I said it had to be colorful and it had to sound good because, of course, there was no sound chip. And a program I did see that Tandy was selling was Steve Bjorg's Spectrum Analyzer, which was semi-graphics. And that was the first time I'd seen semi-graphics mode. And it was colorful and it looked a bit more high-resi. And I thought, gee, if the color computer can do this, why aren't more games using this mode? I hadn't seen any other ones at the time. It was only the Spectrum Analyzer was the first one I saw. So I decided I'm going to write a semi-graphics based game for the CoCo 1 and 2 that shows 8 colors on a black background. And while I was at it, since I've been doing 1-bit sound on a TRS-80 and I was pretty good at making sound effects on that, I thought with a CoCo with a 6-bit sound, I might be able to do a bit better. So I wanted to really have a lot of sound. And that was the what I aimed for in Neutroid. And I think for the most part, I was quite happy with it. It is a very noisy game. It's got some pretty good sound effects, and it's very colorful. Now, the game was a bit abstract, though. I thought it was good. And there were a few arcade machines, like actual arcade machines that use that whole atomic type idea. I think the arcade Reactoid in the arcades had come out, and that was also colorful and lots of sound. And I said, I want a game that was like that, a nuclear idea with lots of color and lots of explosive sound. And that's what Neutroid was. That's what I aimed it to be. And I think I pulled it off, but it is a more abstract game. So I remember when I did release it, at that time, Tandy weren't taking people's programs, so I had to sell it myself. So what I did was I paid for a half-page ad in the local Australian CoCo magazine, and I've actually got that ad here. I'll just show it. Hang on.
I'll stop sharing and you can show that.
Yeah, you'll have to stop sharing and I'll share mine.
There we go.
Okay, and that should be coming up now. So that was the ad I put up for the Australian CoCo magazine. So, of course, there was no desktop publishing or anything. This was all using cut and paste, cutting graphics out from magazines and sticking them all together, putting them on paper. And the black bit there was just a black spray can. I just tried to get creative, and I made that effect with a black spray can, and that was the ad. I thought, oh yeah, that's a pretty impressive ad. So I put it in the Australian CoCo, paid for the half-page ad, sold it for $19.95 Australian at the time, but it sold 0. I didn't sell any copies, so that was a complete write-off.
How did selling go on the Model 1.3 version?
It was good. Yeah, it sold better on the Model 1.3.
Well, have to if it sold at least one. But I'm just wondering, did you sell dozens or tens or 5?
I can't remember. It wasn't. I mean, back in those days, I was still in high school. I was a school kid way back then. So this was all pocket money for me.
Okay.
But it sold more than 0. So, which on the CoCo I was really drumming up to make a big splash with Neutroid 2. But it made 0, nothing. And it was really after that I was going to say, well, CoCo was a bad choice. Time to move on. And I started looking for something else. But then, I don't know, I just got a change of heart because I was a Tandy man all those years. I was a Christmas casual for Tandy for a while. So I was familiar with the store. I was familiar with the TRS-80 Model 1. I used to hang out at the Tandy stores. That's where I learnt about the TRS-80, and then bought my own. Did a lot of work on that. So I was always a Tandy man. So I wanted to go back to the CoCo, but I thought there's no market there. Not in Australia. I know there was in America because I saw all the ads in the Rainbow magazine, but I thought Australia is just nothing for the CoCo.
Nick, was this ad black and white in a color magazine?
No, the pages were black and white.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that would have killed it right there, because it does say on the left there 8-color high-res graphics.
Yeah, that's right. So I was pushing that the game did actually have color. But yeah, the magazine was all just black and white anyway, so that's all right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that was all right. But anyway, without going on from there and explaining how I got into Donut Dilemma, which completely changed my outlook on the CoCo. The Neutroid 2.
You know what the problem is? You can't eat a Neutroid.
No, that's right. It was an abstract game idea. You have atomic particles and the grid and the way it moved, and it did require intelligence, and I think that's where Curtis fails.
Actually, Nick, I've got a response to that. Scott Cooper, and I said basically the same thing during the stream. The easiest way to play Neutroid is to let it play by itself, and several people just let it run on its own, didn't touch anything, and they actually got better scores than they were
It
trying
will
to play.
bounce
That's a
up and
fatal
down.
flaw in gameplay if that's happening.
Well, no, that shows you how damn easy it is. So when someone says it's too hard, you say, well, you must be really bad.
I do have to say that I tried that thing and I could not beat my top score just letting it play. So,
yeah, you got to be lucky. It's a case of getting it timed right, so it bounces up and down between the two grids. But yeah, that doesn't last forever. It'll eventually miss. But that was there for people who find it too hard. You can just let it bounce. But when you actually play it, I mean, back in the day, this was a keyboard only game, and I was still in high school. I actually still had reflexes and some sort of finger dexterity and all that, and I could play it. Now I just can't play it with the keyboard at all. Hence why I released Neutroid 2.015, which added joystick control, which made it a lot easier to control. I added the ability to display the score in graphics modes so that it worked on a CoCo 3 correctly. So it was just a few little fixes I decided to do to it, because I don't think the game is that bad as what Curtis is saying. I thought it was
the game itself is good. I
abstraction.
actually did compliment you on the game
It's an
design, the sound
abstract
design, the
idea.
graphics. It's just the controls are a little bit too unforgiving the way it is now. I
Well,
think if you switch one of those two things, it would be much more playable.
You're meant to be controlling a nuclear reactor. So it's not really a particle. You don't actually control the nuclear particles. You control the reactor. So the reactor is the one that's creating the magnetic fields which guide it.
Well, I'm going to call BS on that, because, I mean, if you've actually studied what they do in atomic reactors, when they do the magnetic field to hold particles, you can't hold them still. That's what they do in the particle accelerator.
Yeah, but this is a alternate reality reactor. So the Neutroid.
basically,
the
Curtis
Neutroid-
just wants to be spoon-fed the game so that he can get a good
That's
score.
right. Yeah.
I want a
The
game that actually
Neutroid-
has the playability factor, taken into consideration. And he did that with Donut Dilemma. His sequel was his best-selling game ever. So he did learn.
Well, I figured that Neutroid required a bit of an understanding of a more abstract idea, and I figured, well, most people obviously don't have that. So I thought when I did,
Zero
decide
people had it from your original sales.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, the thing is, they didn't buy it not based on the fact that they saw it and thought, oh, I don't like that game. They just read it and just didn't understand it. They didn't understand what's the fun in. It doesn't look exciting. It doesn't. You have an atomic particle. I mean, that sounds too cerebral to be fun. So, hence with Donut Dilemma, I said, look, everyone seems to like Mario and the little characters, and
everybody likes
all
donuts.
that.
So that was another plus.
And well, the donuts was there for other reasons, but I decided you need something that's less abstract, and that's where Donut Dilemma came in, and that did succeed. But Neutroid was too abstract.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Donut Dilemma, that was so good that Tandy sold it. You didn't have to try to sell it yourself.
Yeah. Well, Tandy did sell it, yeah, and that was in. Well, they picked it up in '87, I think. So that was about 3 years later, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was good enough that they actually made it part of the Christmas bundle.
Yeah.
See,
But I'd always hoped Neutroid, being colorful and lots of sound, was something that would stand out, because up to that point, I hadn't really seen anything. Well, not here in Australia anyway. I hadn't seen any game that was.
Yeah, you hadn't seen
colourful,
like Guardian or Protectors 2
fast.
or Pack Attack
I
or
hadn't
Cave
seen
Hunter.
Guardian. Guardian's good, yeah. Guardian's a definitely good one. But over here, I hadn't seen that, and no one knew about those either. And I just wanted something colourful, made a lot of noise, and was fast, because I was young then. I could actually think faster.
I can say with Neutroid, it did make a lot of noise, but that was coming from the players swearing at the control system.
I think if Neutroid was
that was the
remarketed,
second channel. There was two channel sound. There was one from the computer and two from the user.
Yeah, I was using
you
both during the
remarketed
stream. I'll say that. Go ahead,
if you
Ken.
remarketed Neutroid as a slightly different game, where just say you're a donut and you're picking up sprinkles on the side of the thing,
Yeah.
sell a million
Could have been
copies.
the prequel to Donut Dilemma then.
Yeah, there you go. You're inside
And
of
if
the
you
donut
think-
making machine.
Yeah, and if you think Neutroid 2 was hard to control, Neutroid 1 was harder. It had it was the same idea. You had a grid and again, you controlled the grid, not the particle. But the way it deflected the particle was a little bit different. No, it was still the same, but it looked a bit different. I did different graphics. And it was a little bit more confusing on the Model 1, but in the Model 2 on the CoCo, I did try to simplify it a bit, but yes, obviously still not enough.
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, I think it was good training for you for getting like the sound and working with semi-graphics, because the semi-graphics you came up with lately, because you're back to trying to get the color and the color computer, like Reality SG and pipes and stuff, actually are really good. I have no complaints about any of those. Those things are awesome. So,
Well,
I view it
I
as a
don't think
stepping stone.
I don't think I've ever done a game that used well, not the P mode 4 anyway, because
Well, you
well,
didn't
we
have
don't
P mode. You had P mode
don't-
4 black and white, or hazy
Yeah,
purple and green.
yeah, that's right. And also you always had that you could never turn that blasted border off. So
Nick, the new version 2.015, maybe if you re-released it with rubber gloves and changed, in there and said that you must wear the rubber gloves to advance.
rubber gloves.
Yeah, it would give,
Yeah.
latex gloves or something,
All right.
give them a different feel, for the game.
It's not that type of game.
No, I thought you said it was
We don't know what
nuclear.
you're playing, Ron, but
We're
nuclear
talking
game.
about the same game, aren't we?
With X-rays and stuff shooting out of it.
Yeah. Well, again, it wasn't medical. It was meant to be the whole.
No, I didn't say to
idea.
give you to include KY jelly with it or anything.
So you're influencing the particle by influencing
All
it.
right, asparagus.
Really?
Cucumber.
not helping, Dave.
But anyway,
It's worse.
so that's the story of Neutroid.
And it's still featured for another week yet. So
So I might see if I can play it, because I do want to play it. I do remember playing it. I always found it challenging because trying to get the
it's challenging.
control the Neutroid.
Well, I know the
No,
perfect
yeah,
time that you could come and play it, Nick. You could come
Yeah, I
and play
know,
it
it's
on
just-
Thursday night with us.
Thursday's the worst day. I can't get there on
Well, Nick, in this
Thursday.
case, because it is your game, even if you just pre-record,
Yeah, I might
playing
do
with
that.
VC or something like that,
Well-
and just send that up for us to you.
Yeah,
I
we could
might do that. Yeah, I might do that.
Yeah, we could throw something up on during the stream of you playing it, and
make sure you
talking about
record your audio while playing it, because if you have any wild comments about the gameplay like I did, I'd like to hear them.
Oh yeah, you probably only hear, "Wow, that's fantastic! What a game! Who's came? Oh, that's right."
No, I meant
wrote
without a lot of advanced drinking beforehand. That's what I.
Yeah, no, I have a bit of a soft spot for Neutroid because it was my first CoCo game.
Yeah, I guess. Like I said, the sound and graphics and even the game concept is all fine. I have no problems with any of that. Just the control system's a little bit too. It's not even just obtuse. It's a little too ramped up in difficulty right off the bat to me. And that's something you've really spent a lot of time on your later games making sure. Like you swapped levels on a couple of games because the ramp up was not right. So you obviously have learned from that.
Yeah, the ramp up wasn't too good. And I remember back in the day when I wrote it, I used to play it on the CoCo 2 with the arrow keys on the CoCo 2 layout, and it was fine. I bounced around quite well. I mean, one thing it takes a bit of getting used to is the fact that once you can only change the direction of the Neutroid when it gets to an intersection of the two. The grid itself has to have an intersection. So, some people would just say, "Oh, I want it to go up." I said, "Well, you're halfway down. You're not even at an intersection. It's not going to go up. You can't stop it. You can't reverse it. You can only go forward until you get to an intersection." And there's that time.
Yeah, and then if you have one of those other particles coming at you at that time, you're just doomed. Like you can see
Well,
you're
that's
going to
right.
get hit.
So you sort of do have to look ahead a bit, so you know that I'm heading towards another. What did I call it? A protroid, or an antitroid, or whatever I called it.
Some form of Australian BS, but
yeah. But basically that was the thing. You didn't actually control the neutroid. The neutroid always moved. It always traveled forwards.
So help me understand. So you aren't controlling the particle. You're controlling the surroundings.
No, you are controlling
the surroundings
the grid.
indirectly control the
That's
particle.
right. You control the grid, or the grid.
And we have
the
played a
grid
few
is
games
affecting
like that where
So the
you just
disconnection-
basically can control which angle the thing will bounce left or right, or
basically what you're doing is you can control the steering of the particle when it hits an intersection. That's all you can
That's
do.
all.
Well,
You're,
no, that's-
you're
that's the
You can't
thing
change
is-
direction. You can't
I think
reverse.
I see
You can't stop.
I think I see the issue here is you're trying to steer the particle and you can't steer it.
Yes,
It's
that's right.
random.
I think that
You can only
I
steer
think-
the surroundings, which only affect the particle when it passes
That's right.
intersections,
that's
Yeah.
the whole idea.
which
See,
is not
it's
what
a-
you're trying to do. You're
No.
trying to drive the particle and you can't do that.
It's too complicated, man.
There, Ron
Well,
just
see-
summed it up
see,
perfectly.
And that's the thing. That's what people couldn't quite get. They knew that they thought they were controlling the neutroid, and they're not. They're affecting the neutroid.
they're
and you
controlling the
can't-
intersections.
That's right. You are controlling the reactor of the nuclear. Well, whatever. It's not really a reactor, but whatever that is, I just call it a reactor. You're controlling the reactor from the outside.
So those are like nuke rods.
You can deflect it at 90-degree
Yeah,
increments in the
sort of.
direction you're going when you hit an intersection. That's the control.
That's it. That's right. Yeah.
Period. You can't stop
only
it. You
time-
can't back.
The only
You're deflecting a bullet.
Well, the only way to backtrack is if you run
Bounce off the sidewall.
grid and well, it hits the wall and bounces back, and of course it loses energy if it does that. But if you
Does it
can
on the
hit
left,
a
right too, or is it only on the
Up
top
and
bottom
down.
that you lose energy?
on the Model 1, the original one, it was all the way around, yes. But the graphics are again, because of semi-graphics, the resolution horizontally is lower than what it is vertically. So it would have been a bit weird to have slightly different characteristics when it went left and right versus up and down. So
now shouldn't we play this game one more week now that
We
we,
are.
know how to play?
We are playing it one more week.
Yeah,
Ron, it
is
sounds
going
like you're
for one
volunteering to join the show Thursday. So please
Yeah,
come.
we'll see you on Thursday, Ron.
Well, I'm the kind of guy that watches and pokes fun but doesn't do anything.
Oh no, I
I'll
think
even
you
do
gotta
that.
get out there.
Kind
You
of
can
proud
pop
of
on
it
and be
right
the
now.
commentator.
Don't call me a
Ron just
hater.
admitted he likes.
Ron could be the
boxing.
sportscaster live on the show here. You know.
I'm not a hater.
Is it a nuclear
Anyway.
reactor? Is it a
Although
nuclear reactor called the nuclear chamber? You're controlling the chamber.
yeah, you're controlling the chamber, not the particle.
So
Anyway,
so you can get a sunburn if you play it too long.
All right,
Yeah,
so now
probably.
nobody has an excuse on not knowing how to play this game.
and that was a long-winded way of saying read the effing manual.
I did.
Oh, wait,
doesn't-
there's a
the
manual?
manual doesn't help the bad control scheme.
You got to add an easy mode in it, Nick, and just call it the Curtis mode.
Now, I can stop or I can backtrack. One of the two, not both, because that would be way too easy. But
Instructions unclear.
Basically-
I got my finger caught
Yeah.
in the cartridge port.
Oh, we got a Sloopy Malibu here.
Yeah, there's someone who appreciates a neutroid.
Yeah.
too bad we've discussed it already. Anyway,
Anyway, moving on. I think we've spent too much time on neutroid. Moving on.
anyway, join us Thursday. What time, Ken and Sloopy?
Sloopy?
8 p.m.
Eastern.
Eastern time on Thursday.
Now, what time is that with the time switch?
8 p.m.
That'll still be 8 p.m.
Yeah, for me and Ron, it'll change,
Yeah.
and Nick too, I guess.
Yeah.
Actually,
well,
Nick, does that hour change help you make it onto the Thursday show?
Oh. Let's
Because it
see,
will be
so
an
it'll
hour
be
different from what you're used to.
earlier. No, I'll still be away.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, I still will be away.
Oh,
I'll
well,
see what I
like
can
said,
do if I can pull some strings, but otherwise I'll just try to record a video.
Yeah, just
Actually,
record a
there-
video and you can post it for us, or just send it to one of us, either me or Sloopy.
There is
And
a
then,
video on the webpage actually, if you want to play that so people can hear what the sound effects are like.
Yeah, but we want you to play it now.
No, not this
Oh,
canned
okay.
where you reprogram the demo to make it
All
look
right,
like you
all
could
right.
actually play the game properly. None of that crap.
There you go.
All right.
We got to hear your live commentary of you're
Yeah.
playing the game. and-
Geez, why did I program it this way? This is so stupid. That's what I'm expecting to hear.
No. It's more like, God, this is good.
Yeah, we want
I've gone downhill since this. Mind you,
Anyway.
being my very first CoCo game, looking at it, I reckon if I look at the code more closely, there'll be many areas I can say, oh, why did I do that? I could have coded it this way. It could have been faster here. I could have
Yeah, that you
really
could do.
There we
rattled.
go. Faster. That's what it needs.
By the way,
Yeah,
Robin in
I
the
could've-
chat says, does the time change make Neutroid easier? No, it does not.
No, it doesn't.
does.
So it sounds like you're going to redo it, Nick.
No, I've already redone it once.
Yeah, he's
so
done
that-
it once. Twice. Model 1 to the CoCo and then CoCo to the 2015 version.
Well,
Actually,
third time's the
that-
charm.
the latest game I'm working on, which at this point I'm not announcing because I don't know if I can do it. It's another game whereby you don't control the object. You affect the object. Oh well, yeah, you affect the object. You actually don't control the main. Yeah, Neutroid-ish, I guess.
So you have to
So you
like
heard it
breathe on
here-
the screen.
Sorry.
You have to breathe on the screen. You know, kind of blow. at
No,
Like
no,
Kerwin.
there's gravity. There's gravity in this other game, so you sort of have to control this particle not directly again. So there it is. We're
There we
going to
go.
get
Nick is
Curtis.
making Neutroid 3.
Yeah, there you go.
Are you going to call
Curtis.
it Gravitroid?
And if you call it that, I probably won't play it, Nick.
Oh yeah.
Nick,
Grab-
weren't you in your teens when you first when you did the first version of this?
I was still in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Neutroid 3 confirmed. Yay.
Well,
that's
Not
what,
really, but it's
Buy your copy today.
Okay, we ready for commercial break?
Nope.
No, we
Yeah,
need
why
Ken to
you-
announce
I
the
have to
next
announce
game.
another game.
Dang. Okay.
Dang.
Okay, well, I'll get ahead with this. And
Neutroid 3.
We are playing Neutroid again for another week, and nobody has any excuses for not knowing
Yay.
how to play it. And our next game is
Gravitroid.
going back in the catalog a little bit.
No one had any excuse for playing Neutroid because I showed them how in last week's show.
There you go.
I don't even have
So-
to guess this one. The title's right on the screen.
Yeah, the title's right on the screen. So,
Food fight.
Creature Feature.
Creature feature. I never seen this one.
Yeah, it's. I'll just
It was
show
one
you
of 4 games by the same author that came out at the same time. I think it started advertising in 83.
83 by John Nakowski.
Yeah, he did some work for Color Quest, which was the games division of Nelson, later Softlaw, the guys that did VIP Library. This was their, he was part of the ones that did like Nibbler and a few others, I think, if I remember correctly, a couple of the games too for them. And then he kind of branched off and did his own company, which is where this one's from.
So basically, after Neutroid, this is a game for Curtis. It's very simple. You just walk around
That's
the screen
mindless.
and shoot things.
Shoot everything.
And avoid the white dots that are on the screen because they kill you.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, after playing Neutroid, I did want to shoot everything. So that's perfectly appropriate.
Good game.
Now we're ready for a commercial break. Mark?
Okay, here we go.
Hi, I'm John,
And I'm Aaron of the CoCo Show.
and you're watching or listening to the CoCo Nation, the live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer and its cousins.
All hail the CoCo Nation.
Om.
In a world where RGB produces black and white video, one cable can make a difference. switcheroo. CoCo3ScartCable.com.
G'day from the land down under, where toilets flush backwards and thongs are a respectable form of casual footwear. I am Nick Morentes and I have been developing games for the CoCo for over 35 years. Welcome to the CoCo Nation, the interactive live video talk show for all enthusiasts of the CoCo family of computers.
Only the bravest souls enter. Only the most cunning return. Defeat innumerable monsters to ransom the king's scepter, stolen by the evil wizard. Your sword, shield, and wits are your only allies. Pray you find a magical inn as your only respite in the forest of doom.
For the Tandy Color Computer 1, 2, and 3.
November 2017, if you dare.
When you want the latest in TRS-80, Tandy, Dragon, MC-10, and all of their hardware cousins. No matter what it takes. For where news breaks. From around the world. To your nation.
The CoCo Nation News with L. Curtis Boyle.
That was actual live footage of me playing Neutroid.
This man's on fire.
I wanted to burn something, I'll tell you that. Hey, so we got just a couple of game-related news stories here, and honestly, this could have been under programming as well. So, TRS-80 Computer Programming channel on YouTube. He's been working on 2 games simultaneously: Tales Suburbia and Ghost Saga. This is Ghost Saga, as you can see here. So he did another video here, and he's kind of explaining, some of the concepts he's putting into the game. He has a little bit of extra stuff on the engine. He's got the ability to duck now, which will be critical later on in the game too. But he's actually showing you what some of the gameplay will be. Where he goes through about 3 of the screens. I won't play them all here. I'll play a little bit of this little bit here on the first screen. But it becomes kind of a arcade adventure hybrid, which is actually kind of neat. So in this case here, he's killed the ghost that was floating around, which you've seen before if you've been watching anywhere coverage of his previous videos. But now he's going to walk up to the door, and because the ghost is gone, the joystick button will now open the door to get into the building, which is basically just switching to a text mode to describe something, as opposed to like swinging your axe to kill the ghost. So I'll just play a little bit of that. You can kind of see the direction he's going, but he's got stuff where you got to get certain items to do certain things. You have to go back and forth between screens. So it becomes a much more involved game than the original, demos he's done.
The ghost, we can open the door and it says the door to your house is locked. All right. And I must have a glitch in here somewhere because it's not letting me out of the dialog box. It's supposed to go for a certain amount of time, but it's staying there, and I'm not sure why.
This is part of the live coding fun, where stuff happens. You don't have a clue why.
I have more time to read it, but it's just supposed to flash by real quick. And he lowers his weapon. If you can see that now the butt of the handle is down here, and so it's
So I won't play the whole thing, but basically, like the second screen here, he explains like he's going to have these arrows, which are going to be a bit lower on the final one. It's not going to have a little box on it. He's just doing that to calculate the size of the get put buffer. But now you got to duck to get under this because you can't actually hit it. It's too high for you to swing at. And then behind one of these tombstones, you're going to find a key, which will then unlock the door, which then gets you an object that's in the house that you'll need on the third screen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's becoming an interactive adventure arcade hybrid, which actually is kind of cool. And he's been using the P copy technique. We'll get into another video he's done that I know Mark noticed here this morning as well, but I'd already talked to him about it. But that'll be coming out with the regular news because there's more programming stuff. And then the second game on related one this week is, of course, Jim Gary, slacking off and only doing one this week. But he did, though this will be an Alan Huffman favorite, I'm sure, but it's a Doctor Who adventure he's doing on the MC-10. And this is based on one by, as you can see on the description here on the bottom, by Jeremy Guggenheim in 1983. And this was actually from Computer and Video Games Magazine, March 1983 issue. And this was originally for the Atari 400 and 800. And he actually found some bugs in the original code. There's a bunch of Go subs that didn't do a return. So eventually we would just keep filling the stack with Go sub addresses and eventually crash, even on the Atari. So we fixed that. Only 40 years later, but hey. I'll play a little bit of that. It actually looks like a pretty interesting little game, especially if you're a Doctor Who fan. A little bit of a description there, what your mission is, and 3 difficulty levels that you can pick from, which if you're watching the video, you can obviously see this yourself, but I'm describing it for the audio listeners. So let's fast forward a little bit to the actual gameplay. There we go. So in this case, he ran up to the little TARDIS. Now he walked inside the TARDIS, which of course is bigger on the inside than on the outside. For Doctor Who fans who obviously know that already. Exit the TARDIS again. Now he's walking through a door on the top. And you can see a mummy case. So it has little descriptions of what you're finding down on the bottom left. And then you go up, gather items, and go between rooms, et cetera, like that, and fly in the TARDIS, et cetera. Stuff will chase you down. But it looks like a pretty involved game. And if you're a Doctor Who fan, there's definitely a lot of references to the TV show. So I think it would be a fun one to try. I wouldn't mind seeing a high-res version of this one, either for the MC-10 or the CoCo at some point. All right, that's it for the game on specific news. And now I'll switch over to the regular news. Let me just bring the window up so I can see what I'm doing here and share that. So speaking of Alan Huffman, he did another blog post, and this time he's deep diving into tokenized lines and how they're stored in BASIC, how much memory they take. And he wrote a little utility in BASIC itself, as you can see on the screenshot here. It'll show you the address and then the address pointing to the next line. So basically that first one is line 0. It starts at address 9729, and then it has a pointer that says the next line is going to start at 9747. So it's an 18 bytes of tokenized BASIC, and then it goes through and lists them all. And he goes into quite a bit of detail here on how that works, and going through the memory and how it gets allocated. He shows you exactly how to figure out where everything for BASIC starts with some peaks, like where does a string variable storage start? Where do arrays start and end? Where do regular variables start? The basic program itself, where does that start? And basically, he actually published the code for this in here. So if you want to put this into your own program to figure out where stuff is happening in BASIC, you can actually merge this with you, and that's just a Go sub, and it'll kind of you can basically set it up to dump whatever lines you need to know about. And this will come in handy, I think, later on, because you can actually embed machine language subroutines in stuff like strings. And this will actually be able to tell you where that string is being held in the BASIC program, so you can actually do the pokes into BASIC itself to embed an ML subroutine, because there's some other techniques for doing it, but this will be a way you can actually kind of just do it yourself if you need to, without having to find a third-party thing to do it. So looking forward to see where he's going to go. He is planning on a sequel one, as he mentions here. For an upcoming article, I expect to use a version of the code to prove something as it relates to BASIC and the length of lines. But it might also be fun to generate some statistics, longest line, shortest line, a graph, the different line lengths, etc. So looking forward to the second article.
Also, you can also poke graphics directly into a print statement or a string.
Yeah, does semi-graphic stuff like the MC-10 does. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some third-party programs that did that too. But this is actually learning how it works under the hood, which is cool. Next up, this was just kind of cool. James Diffendaffer did a little graphics port here And for those of you watching on the video version of the show, there you can see, if you've ever were a fan of the Battlestar Galactica, the original TV series from the 70s and 80s, not the reboot. It's one of the what's that? Viper, yeah, exactly. Colonial Viper, that's what it's called.
Yep, Colonial Viper. Yep.
And this is basically drawn on a CoCo 1 and 2. And this was originally based on one written by Monty McGraw in 2000 for a Tech 4052. And Monty himself actually has commented on this. And then Monty went and talked about fiddling around with this view here, which is basically, if you remember the old TV show, they had this kind of circular and diagonal and horizontal line grid pattern for aiming at shooting a Cylon. And thought it would be pretty cool to see an animated version of that on the CoCo after seeing what James had done. Now, James didn't get a chance to do it, but Paul Shoemaker came in and did one here. And let's see if I can increase the size. Are you guys seeing this now? The full size version?
Yep.
So he actually quickly wrote a program that does do the animation, so you can actually see, kind of steering around, and here's the Cylon. You're trying to get it in your sights to launch from the Colonial Viper to kill it. So I remember I watched this show religiously as a kid, even though it had some stupid stuff like that. What did they call that dog thing? The little robot dog.
No,
that?
Agate.
Agate, yeah. That's what was getting a little bit too childish for me at that point. But mind you, I was in my teens already. So as a younger kid, I probably would have loved it. But I still love the show. It was awesome fun. So that was just kind of cool to see.
Stargate SG-1 did a lot better of throwing back to, Egypt and lore of like Thor, the mythology stuff. Then
kind of linking it all up.
Yep.
So it was kind of cool to see James did this port. The original author came on to comment and mention it'd be cool to see one of these things. And then Paul Shoemaker comes in within 24 hours and basically just does that exact demo he'd asked for. So that was neat. Next up now, is Tim still on the call?
I am.
Okay, I'm just going to display the screen. You can explain what's going on and how you're involved.
Oh, I'm going to be an attendee at a regional gaming show.
Called?
8 Bits or Less Retro Gaming Festival down in Corvallis, Oregon.
Off by 8 times.
Says 64 bits or less.
Oh, what did I say?
8 bits.
8 bits or more.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll go that way.
Looks like it's going to be a fun time. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, come on by. It's June 3rd and 4th. I believe that's a Saturday and a Sunday.
Yep.
And should be a lot of fun, hopefully.
Now, it says here it's sponsored by the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, which is the show you and AJ attended to, right?
Yeah, that's the show in the fall. That's way huge in Portland proper.
So this is actually on a county fairground. So I'm not familiar with Benton County, but is that like out in the country somewhere, or is that in a town? Or
yes, it's out in the country. I live in Benton County, Oregon. So yes, it's out in the country.
Yep.
So you go sit out in the grass by a forest, and you guys, bring diesel generators and fire up machines, or how does this work?
Well, I expect there'll be a building. It's on a county fairground. They usually have buildings, places to put the hogs and the cows.
Yes, they have lots of buildings, mainly open barns.
Okay, because the screenshot they're showing here, not screenshot, the photo they're showing here is actually it's a set of chairs and tables out in the grass.
Yeah, it does show that.
That doesn't look anything like I've seen at the Benton County Fairground, but I haven't seen all bits of it. So.
Yeah, that looks like somebody's backyard.
Yes, it does.
They don't have any homeless trouble or anything?
Oh,
homeless cows, maybe.
They live down by the river, which is the opposite side of town from the county fairground.
And one thing I'll do is I'll read a little bit of description, then I'll get Tim to maybe comment on it. So they say the goods. And they mentioned the consoles they're planning on having includes Pong, the original, Atari 2600, Magnavox Odyssey 2, Intellivision, ColecoVision, Atari 7800, Sega Master System, NES, Genesis, Super Nintendo, TurboGrafx 16, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, PlayStation. All original hardware on CRTs, not LEDs. A great selection of games. The shooting gallery. So they're going to have a whole bunch of laser gun based games, or not light gun, not laser gun. Sorry. So this will include some stuff. The NES, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis. I don't know if Tim's planning, because I know he's built one of the Diacom ones. You could bring a CoCo 3 and display the couple games that we did there. And the computer lab, they mentioned the Atari 800, the TR City color computer, Commodore VIC 20, TI-94A, IBM PS1 Advisor running Windows 3.1.1, IBM Aptiva running Windows 98, and you can play Oregon Trail. So I was wondering, Tim, are you involved with the CoCo side of this, or
No,
are you
no.
just in?
No, I'm not. Just attendee. It's gonna be fun.
Okay.
Well,
any plans on bringing out a light gun to show them that the CoCo 3 did some of the light gun games too? Or?
I sold mine a few years ago, so I don't even have one in possession. Aw.
What is wrong with you?
Exactly.
So are you guys just going basically to represent your show then to play games and stuff?
Oh yeah, we're gonna go play games, hand out business cards, try to drum up viewers.
Okay. Children under 5 and under are free. It's $20 in advance, $25 at the door. It doesn't say if that's for both days combined or if that's per day.
It does not.
And it runs Saturday, June the 3rd from 1 p.m. till 10 p.m. and Sunday, June the 4th from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. So if you're up in the, what is that, Corvallis, I think it was called?
Yeah, Corvallis.
Yes.
So what large city is that near, just for people that don't know Oregon?
Not really. Corvallis is like the largest.
That is the large city.
That's
It is the large
60,000.
city, man.
Yeah.
So what's the population of Corvallis then, Mark? Just so I know.
60,000. It's also the home
that's not
of
bad.
Oregon State University, which is a
there
really
you
good
go.
engineering
Oh, yeah.
college.
It's
especially
like
for
it's a
robotics.
college town.
Oh,
Yeah, it is.
okay. Well, that's not bad then. I was thinking like it was going to be like a population of 500 to Hamlet or something.
No. So I actually live 5 miles north of Corvallis in a little place called Adair Village, but I'm still in Benton County. The largest city is Portland, but that's an hour and a half away. And that's where the Portland Gaming Expo usually does their stuff in October. So I'm surprised they're moving out of the city.
So the Portland Gaming Expo obviously is helping sponsor this, as we mentioned. Do they have any others besides? I didn't know they had more than one show to begin with. So is there
Neither
more
did
than this
I.
or just these two?
Neither did I. I'm surprised.
This is all I know about.
Down the page, it says something about this is the 6th time they've done this, but they've moved it out of the city. I don't know if they've held it in Portland or somewhere else closer to Portland, but somewhere there's a little thing, a little blurb on that. So this will be like the sixth event.
No, okay. I didn't catch that. I don't. Oh yeah, here
I
we
read
are.
it. I read it there somewhere.
Yeah, right
Here
here.
it is.
Need room.
This is our 6th presentation of this event. Due to demand, we're expanding to the Benton County Fairgrounds.
Which is weird because again, it's like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes from Portland proper. They got to go down the interstate freeway and then it's basically 15 miles to the west. So it's not like hop, skip, and a jump. I would have thought they'd have gone like over into Washington State.
Well, maybe this person's backyard filled up that they had the picture of, and they
Could
could
be.
be to the fairgrounds now.
And it could be that somebody that's on the board lives down here, and so they wanted to do it down here. And it could be they got a good rate too. So
yeah.
So Mark and Tim, have either of you ever attended this particular show before?
No.
Or is this gonna be new?
It'll be new for me as well.
But it's like 9 miles for me, so I probably should go. Really.
Yeah, actually, you both of you, actually all three of you, because AJ will be going too to
Oh, yeah.
present the CoCo.
We'll go.
So that means a live
Yeah,
show.
maybe. I'm thinking.
Well, they don't start till 1 p.m. So that's 2 hours after we usually start. So yeah, it could possibly.
Yeah, like our
early.
shows end after 2 hours,
Yeah.
Mark.
Well, that would be right about now.
Exactly.
We'll be able to go right till the 10 p.m. closing time is what I figure.
Yeah, we could do that.
Now, does either one of you have any idea who's bringing the CoCo? There's obviously another CoCo
No.
user there if it's not either of you.
I don't know who it is.
No.
We should
Well,
invite them on the show. Maybe Tim, are you in contact with the people at the show at all?
No, but I'll make those emails.
Okay, yeah, because if they want to come on and promote the show and just we'll meet another CoCo user,
yeah,
that'd be kind of cool.
I'll send some emails.
Cool, thanks. Next up, and this is kind of a sequel to one we covered before. So this is the TRS-80 retro programming again with the two games he's been working on. So one thing he's done recently is he switched from just doing raw put, and which kind of does crappy, slow, you can watch it draw things. And I gave him a bit of a tip of using P-copy, so you can just copy the background and then just do a put right over top of it without having to do the erase and everything else, which sped up his gameplay quite a bit, like multiple times. But it still shows this rectangular block around your character. So he was asking, like, how do you do background masking? He didn't know it was called that, but how do you actually get something to go over top of a background without wrecking it? And I was trying to explain it to him. And of course, it's it's using logic like and or and stuff, which if you don't understand, that's pretty complicated to figure out that first time. And trying to do it through just YouTube comments did not work well. So I ended up sending him a disk image, which actually has got a few other things. I'll actually be showing this at the end of the show today, just as a bit of a tip for people who want to go grab it and take a look at it too. And basically what you have to do is you have to create a background mask. And this is basically what pixels do you want to show through from the background when you put something over top. And then you add that onto the screen. And then you immediately or the actual sprite itself over top of that. And the combination of the two will basically have your sprite data showing, but whatever is underneath from the background in the background mask will then still show through. So it actually looks like it's going over top. And this was an almost hour-long video of him going through and trying to understand my directions. Obviously, I'm not a very good teacher. But he actually did end up getting it working. Like he did one mistake earlier on here where he had the background color set to a color that actually has some bits set, so the ending did not work properly. But then he figures out if you restore it to green, which is color, unfortunately, basic calls it color 1. It's actually color 0 internally. Basically, this is a 4-color mode. So you have your 4-bit combination 00, 01, 10, 11. That represents your 4 colors. 00 is green in this particular screen color set he's using. Yellow would be 01, blue is 10, and red is 11. And basically, you have to set just color 0 and 3, the 00 and the 11 bits for the mask, and then you can do whatever colors you want. You can have anything show up as transparent or not. So he starts to get it working here. I'll just play a little clip.
That should have worked.
In this case here, he had changed it to highlight the shape on the top by using a blue background so the contrast was better. But then now the bit combination isn't the right one for doing a background mask. Because basically the background mask is the top half where the circle is, and then the bottom is the coin shape he was trying to do. Now when it's masking it on, it's obviously not working.
1 to 10.
So this is where he kind of figured out on his own what he had changed and done wrong.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. Let's edit. Let's edit 3. Let's get rid of this. Let's run this over. Now it works. Okay, so there it is. There's your blended in sprite. The problem was I had a blue background, and you can't start with a blue background. You have to start with a green background. Okay, so
and that's because green is a 00 bit, and the red that he's telling it to show through is the 11 bit, because you're basically doing bit masking, and you have to understand how colors work at the bit level. And the same thing works with the CoCo 3, except now you have 4 bits on, if you're using a 16 color screen. Now this is kind of a technique that, people like Nick and Paul Fiscarelli and Paul Shoemaker, they use this kind of stuff all the time. That's how you do text. If you want text on a Nitrous 9 graphic screen to show up and leave the background alone, it's the same thing when you turn the transparency on off. It's basically doing exactly this. So like I said, I have a little demo disc that I sent him, which has a little bit on this and also some other little techniques you can do in BASIC, which I don't know how commonly are known. So we'll cover that at the end of the show today. But basically, he got it working. I mean, he had to struggle a little bit, and he still doesn't quite understand how logic works. There's also an option for put with the not option, and what not does is reverse the bits. So 00 becomes 11, 01 becomes 10. Basically, any 0 becomes a 1, any 1 becomes a 0. It basically inverses the colors. And that one actually doesn't need an actual get put buffer. It just needs the size of a get put buffer. And you can, if you want to like flash something to have it invert and then invert back to normal and make it blink, basically you can actually just do that. And one thing he noticed here later on when he's doing the actual animation, and he added a little bit of a routine here to move the shape around with the arrow keys, is that if you're doing it live on the screen that you're viewing, you will see it draw the background mask briefly and then draw the actual shape over top that merges it. But it gives you kind of a like blinky effect, which, on a game, you might want to actually do that to make something
it's been
highlighted.
a while since I used in keys.
You can see it's like blink,
Why
blink,
is
blink.
that thing blinking like that? That's insane. Guys. And I can do it. I can move it like that. And
But this is because you're watching the two masks getting drawn over top of each other. So the couple ways to avoid this, and I mentioned that in a comment to him, is that you can either, probably the easiest way is just to draw it off screen. Like P mode on the CoCo 1 and 2 has multiple pages that you can do. Unfortunately, the CoCo 3 did not support this for their higher res modes. But basically, you could actually have it displaying, like right now he's displaying P mode 1,1. So he's displaying page 1, the green part, page 2 is the blue part. You could draw stuff on page 3 or 4, but leave the screen showing page 1 and 2. So you could actually draw a copy of the background and the mask or the coin shape, and then just flip to that screen to show it, or you could get that shape and then plop it on the screen, pre-rendered, pre-masked, everything else. So just bang, it comes on, and you don't get this flickering, flashing thing. On the other hand, if you want to highlight something as being special, maybe you want it to blink. So, I mean, that depends on what kind of technique you want to use there. But there's a couple ways to get around the blinking. But he's quite happy that he actually got the masking, because now he can have shapes go across things without drawing a stupid rectangle around it. So I was glad he finally got it to work, because we were trying to get the discs back and forth for, I think, over a week, because YouTube, every time I posted a link for him to come grab it off my site, it would eat the link and delete the message. It's just YouTube is being a pain in the ass. Anyway, we'll cover that a bit at the end of the show here today. But next up, and I mean, Tim, I think you said you revised the manual to cover the changes here, so you probably knew about this a bit more than I did. I only found out about it this morning, because I don't regularly check Darren's sites. So if you want to explain what the update to the CoCo STC covers, I do have notes.
First off, I really want to thank Darren. You know, you send off feature requests, you send off bugs, and the man's great. He's very responsive. He's an excellent coder. Things get done. I sent in a feature request a few months ago about being able to change the disk in a set, the active disk in a set, you know, via software rather than pushing the button. And he and this the latest update has it in the firmware where you can send a command to change the disk in a set. There's plenty of other stuff new in the firmware. There's plenty new in the basic ROM.
STC DOS, yeah.
STC DOS. You know, you can change the step rate on real floppy drives now with a simple little basic command. You were saying that the default date for new files is
the release date of the firmware.
The release date of the firmware rather than other things. Hey, if CoCo has an RTC, maybe we can request a feature to set the date of.
That would be awesome.
of a file in.
I'd buy second ones of these to get that.
But yeah, the download, the new PDF is available on Darren's site. It's also on CoCo Archive. Yeah, update your SDC. It's a great little addition.
What's the number?
I don't know.
What? Oh, the firmware update?
Yeah, it shows.
No. Oh, 1.6 is old. What's
127 is the new firmware, and STC DOS is 175.
Okay.
175.
And I've got a list here of basically what has been added, so I'll skip the ones that have already been covered. The thing that actually kind of triggered, I think, him actually doing the new release, even more so than feature requests from myself and Tim and others, was Carl England was working on trying to get copy protected discs in the SDF format, which is, you know, the full version of tracks and sectors. David Ladd can probably go into it more than I can.
No.
What?
Don't trigger him, David Ladd.
Don't trigger him.
This is his favorite part of the show where we're geeking out on floppies. But basically, Carl England hit a few spots here where you can make an SDF image, but there were certain, you know, hidden tricks that some of the copy protection schemes used on sector numbers and stuff like that, the deleted data address marks, etc., that wasn't fully supported on the SDC, so it couldn't run these programs. And Carl's been going around making his new SDC Magic, or whatever he's calling the new version of his backup Magic for the SDC specifically, and had been going back and forth with Darren on, you know, what needed to be fixed, and all that is fixed now. So basically, he can make with his new utility,
CoCo-based utility.
Yeah, you can actually make full copy protected disk copies of all kinds of stuff we couldn't do properly before. And I know some of the games that he'd mentioned he tried it on that were working now are ones that are not quite intact on the archive right now. Like they have graphic glitches or they crash or, you know, whatever else.
That happens when you crack these old games sometimes.
So I'm hoping we can actually get some of these, you know, old games fixed now, so that they, like, I know Gauntlet 2 is an example where, you know, the warrior, if he turns a certain direction, maybe it's not the warrior, but one of the shapes actually, like a chunk of the graphics is wrong. Thexter had the same problem too. It wasn't nipples like Ken and or Tim and AJ were saying.
Just Tim. Just Tim.
just Tim. Unfortunately, I can't unsee that since you said it. So thanks a lot. So basically, there's that. The switching disks in a disk set, as Tim already mentioned. There's the added option for 8-bit transfers in the right logical sector that has always been there for the read, and that was actually set up to use the TFM from the 6809 or 6309. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing he mentions that he has not tested it to see if it's fully reliable at 1.78 megahertz on a CoCo 3. Now, that is something I had pressed for a while ago, and he wasn't sure if he had enough room left on the CPLD to actually program it to handle that speed. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. That's something I'll have to test. But right now, as it currently stands, if you're running Nitrous 9, for example, which normally runs double speed, period, all the time, if we have to do a write to the SDC, we clock it back to CoCo 1 and 2 speed until the write's done, and then kick it back on again. So I'm hoping this will solve that, because it would make stuff like running C compiles or packing basic programs or assembly, making assembly programs and stuff a lot faster, because you'd be able to run it full throttle instead of keeping, having to drop the clock rate down. He's at, and this I don't know too much about. Tim and I were kind of discussing a little bit in the pre-show. It sounds like you haven't had a chance to really try too much of this either yet. But adding options for creating and mounting files that aren't necessarily disk images. These can only be accessed using LBA sector commands or the stream command. Now, the stream command originally you could read from, but that's all you could do. But it sounds like you can actually create files that are outside of the disk images themselves. Maybe you could, for example, read in the configuration file that you normally have to save from a PC or a Linux or a Mac box to set your defaults. You may be able to, with the utility that knows how to use the LBA mode, access that file and change it from the CoCo without having to boot up the PC at all. I'm hoping that's what it.
Yeah, that would be useful to edit the config file on the CoCo itself.
Yeah, but also you could add in digitized sound files that are too big to fit on a standard CoCo memory. You could just blast out and then use the stream command afterwards to load them back into issue out to the DAC or something.
So previous to this update, when you mounted a disk image, it would probe that file to see what kind of disk image it was. How many tracks it thought it had, how many sides it thought it had, and then it would configure itself so that the cylinder head and side methods of accessing the disk would work. And of course, you could do it in LBA mode. But what he's added here to the new version is a way of mounting disk images, but just to ignore all the disk image stuff. It no longer tries to interpret what's inside the file. It just will let you treat it as a logical array of blocks. And that helps in mounting non-disk image files. And some of the things we've seen that use that are like video players.
Like Ed Snyder's little demo that he did.
Yeah.
Cool.
But doesn't that already play?
Read only. Now you can actually write if you wanted to.
Yeah. The stream command, which automatically will read 512 bytes at a time, is read only, but the LBA read and write function should work on normal files, not disk images.
Yeah. So theoretically, let's say you've got 2 hard drive images mounted, and that's the maximum you can currently have. Let's say you've got a 3rd hard drive image you want to grab a file off. Technically, using the LBA mode, you should be able to open that in stream mode and actually copy files off that 3rd hard drive image onto one of the 2 you actually got actively mounted.
Well, that won't work. You still only have 2 mount points.
Even with the LBA mode where you're talking.
You're right. Even with LBA mode, it works on one of the 2 mount points. They're numbered 0 and 1.
And does Stream work that way too, or does Stream let you open an extra file from
Stream
somewhere else?
uses one of the mount points as well.
Ah, darn.
Yeah. So
is that made that way so that in the future we can do more, graphical streaming or
more video playing on the CoCo?
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it easier to build
or sound,
video players.
Sound streaming too. You can do background sound that way as well.
Yeah.
And then some patches that covers basically the patches he's done to the firmware. Now, when we get into SDC DOS itself, he's also added some stuff which Tim already mentioned, to be able to change the step rate if you have real floppy drives hooked up at the same time.
Is there a menu for it?
No, it's
for-
command line.
No, these are
Oh.
command line stuff.
Okay.
Now that could be incorporated into STC Explorer if William wants
be.
to add that in. But if you have depth step equals, and you can pick 6, 12, 20, or 30, so you can change the millisecond step to step rate. Radio Shack DOS defaults to 30, the absolute slowest one, because that's their very first generation of drives from 1981, 82. That's what they ran at. But if anybody's had an experience running 3.5-inch drives and stuff under Nitrous 9, like real drives, you can actually increase the speed of the track-to-track seeking and stuff by quite a bit.
We
And it
can
makes
do
the drive quieter. Also, it doesn't have that chunk sound. It's just more like a zzz, zzz, like an IBM PC would have if you're doing that type of thing. And actually, it does speed up disk access a fair bit if you're running random access files,
Well,
etc.
ADOS did that, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, EDOS had that option too.
And CDOS.
Yes.
Yeah, and Steve Bjork's little disk fix patch program, I think, had that option as well, if I remember. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, my question is, in this, is it a PDF file? Do they have the syntax to use on there?
Yeah, Tim, you did that update
Yeah.
for that. Right?
Yeah. That's in the PDF file.
Well,
That would
thank
be
you.
this right over here. He's patched the backup and disk any commands. Both of them no longer will erase the current program or variables in memory. So before, if you accidentally disk any disk, you forgot to save something, that program was gone. Not anymore. So you can do that. That's cool, especially with disk any. That was one I sometimes forgot and blew things up.
And as much as I complain about prompts, that would have been a good place for a prompt.
Yeah, exactly. Are you sure?
Yeah.
You're about to wipe anything you have, not just on the disk, but in RAM too.
Right.
Disk any's also been patched to tolerate up to 6 granules of 9 sectors per granule that have bad sectors in them, and still allow you to format the disk. And it'll do the same thing OS 9 does, where it finds bad sectors, it'll mark them as used, so you can't accidentally try to write something there that's not reliable. So that way you can actually use some disks that do have some errors on them, say you have a scratch or something, but you can still use the rest of the disk fine. It'll handle up to 6 granules at a time before it aborts and said, this disk is so screwed, I don't even want to try. So that's one nice thing that's been added as well. And this one, Tim, maybe you know more about this than I do. I was trying to talk to some of the hardware guys. I can't remember those before or after you were on the pre-show. But I'll just kind of quote here. Sector IO code has been rewritten to use the status polling rather than the halted NMI, which is kind of the infinite loop method where you basically just jam, load, store, and the non-maskable interrupt will break you out once the sector's done. This prevents problems that can happen on a CoCo 1 or 2 due to a lack of pull-up resistors on the address bus and read-write lines. He notes particularly if the 609 has been replaced with 609. I've ran mine on my CoCo 1 and I've never had a problem that he's describing. Do you know exactly what that's about, Tim?
I don't know exactly what that's about, but I can speculate as much as the next man. It sounds like he rewrote the IO kernel to use status polling rather than halting. And frankly, that seems like magic to me, because I didn't think the 6809 had enough time to do status polling. Do you think he's
It
only
doesn't normally,
talking
because we
about-
tried that in
Yeah.
Nitrous 9.
Do you think he's only talking about when communicating with the emulated floppy disk? Or do you think he's talking about both communicating with the emulated floppy disk and when you're talking to a real floppy disk? You think it's just the STC? Okay.
Do you think he's listening in?
I have no idea.
Yeah, cool.
Could lead us.
Would be
And
good.
because he of course is written the emulator to emulate the floppy disk, and so he can be a little bit more flexible with his status polling and not drop any bytes. So if that's the case,
Yeah, because that was the
then-
problem with the original. Like when we tried Nitrous 9 with the 6309, we were hoping to be able to get running fast enough that we did not have to use the halt. And it was somewhat reliable, but not enough. It would still cause errors every once in a while, and a bit too often for Bill and my tastes. That it was running in native mode. But basically, yeah, because basically it halts the CPU. That's why you lose keyboard type ahead and stuff like that under OS 9, because basically it literally shuts the CPU off for a little bit. And if the PA is trying to read something, forget it. It's all halted. So if he's just changed it, tweaking, like basically you got presented a byte from the sector read for a certain amount of time, and then it's on to the next byte, whether you read it or not. And that's the problem we were having. We were trying to get it running in a native mode, was that it almost worked. It was so close, but it would corrupt like 5 bytes a sector or something like that. and lose them, and then would you actually get off, you'd be expecting 256 bytes, you might have only got 252 or something like that. So your program will go like, where the hell are the other four, and where are they supposed to go? So I'm hoping that means that he's basically just extended the amount of time it's present on the bus, or maybe just leaves it on the bus until you've read it, and then kicks out. That's how the no-halt floppies basically work. They had a separate cache, like the distros had a 256 byte cache, and the Sardis had 8K or 32K. It would basically read the sector, and then you could just read it at your leisure, like take as much time as you want, or read it as fast as you can, or whatever. Basically you didn't have to halt the CPU whatsoever, and that's why type ahead worked a lot better. Hard drive interfaces do that a lot too. They're all buffered. So I'm not quite sure which way he's doing. The part that confuses me is this talk about having lack of pull-up resistors on the address bus and read-write lines, particularly if you replaced a 609 639 for a CoCo 1 and 2. I don't understand what most of that means because I'm not a hardware guy. So I don't know if anybody wants to speculate on that. Maybe some of the hardware guys like Mark or Rick.
Well, yeah, CMOS does not assert the bus at all in Tri-State. It just floats.
And CMOS is the original 609.
No, CMOS is the,
CMOS is
6309. The 6809 was NMOS.
NMOS.
So it's going to kind of trend. They're different. So I could see there'd be some subtle problem when you really start driving things where the same is not the same. Just because of the difference between NMOS and CMOS. And I can't really pull up any details right now because it's Saturday.
Well, the question is, like, I've swapped out a 6809 to a 639 on my CoCo 1 years ago. I've used it a fair bit. Ken, I know you've done the same thing. I've never hit a problem with the floppy controllers.
The thing to keep in mind is digital computers aren't digital. They're analog devices that pretend to be digital. So 99% of the time and 100% of the time are two different things. So it's very, driven as intended by the data sheet. One thing will work perfectly, but as you want to do it, maybe it won't. So a couple of extra pull down resistors can put some insurance in. It's like a hard drive without the terminator will work sometimes and sometimes it won't. Well, it's because it's not a digital device, it's an analog device pretending to be digital signals.
So if I'm understanding correct, Rick, basically what you're saying is that some CoCos may have worked fine not needing any of this stuff, but this would help some of those edge cases.
90% of the code will work fine. I mean, I'm finding out as I'm building hardware that CoCos are, there's a range of what works. And when you stick strictly to the rules, it works on every CoCo. And then the more you deviate, the less it works. So the more we try to improve our performance, the more we run into those edge cases where, okay, now we really need some pull-up resistors to get this line back up quick enough instead of letting it float up by itself. And
that's kind of mind-boggling because, aren't we dealing with everything being zeros and ones? Evidently not.
Well, no, we're dealing with, okay, if it's below 1.8 volts, it's a 0. And if it's above 2.3 volts, it's a 1. And okay, well, what if it's 2.295? Okay, well, it's...
what if it's in between when you're trying to access it type thing? I'll just read. There's a whole bunch of comments in the chat here from other hardware experts that I'll just read out. So Franklin Harris of Retro Rewind says they should be pulled down with 10K resistor. Mike Miller says the halt puts the bus into high impedance. On the CoCo 3, there are some pull-ups. On the CoCo 1, 2, and the Dragon, there are none. This can lead to undefined bus states, which I think is where you're talking the voltages are in between what a 0 and a 1 should be. For example, writes when there shouldn't be writes. Getting rid of the halt makes it work guaranteed. Frank says they don't have to be unless there is some noise. Mike says we had this problem on the Dragon a lot with the CoCo SDC and have adopted pull-ups as a fix. So apparently that was a problem on the Dragon with the CoCo SDC itself too. And then Frank says Rick is 100% correct. Most of the time it isn't needed, but there are edge cases.
So Paul used to make when he was alive, he made 6309 sockets with like what he called them buffers on there. Mm-hmm. Is that what we're talking about?
I don't believe so.
That's a little different.
Well, what are buffers so that
they're to protect spikes?
Yeah,
protect
okay.
CPU from spikes.
So what are the things you're talking about?
Timing issues, I think, right? Am I understanding right?
Right. So if I had to,
like when you're changing, like you mentioned, like I say, 1.8 volts and under is a 0 bit, 2.2 volts and higher is a 1 bit. I'm not sure if that's the right values, but anyway, there's a 0.4 volt middle part there where it's undefined.
Yeah,
you don't know if it's a 0 1.
undetermined.
And if you happen to get the timing so that when you go to read an address or whatever, and it's in the middle, it's an undefined voltage, so it doesn't know, is this supposed to be 0? Is this supposed to be 1? And I think that's where this is happening, right? Is my understanding
If
right?
you could see my camera at all, I don't know if this shows it a bit.
Well,
but
here, let
here's
me stop sharing here because we want to share this with the viewers. So, can you zoom up, Rick? There,
Yeah, I'm coming.
I have to wake you from your sickness
from
coma.
his deathbed there.
Yep.
Yeah. So here's the service
Just wait, he's
manual.
not got your full screen. There we go.
No, you're up.
There we go. So here's the service manual, and you'll notice the signals are not squares; they are like football shapes.
So where's
And
the
so-
gap?
That's because of timing.
Point at it.
That is the timing. Well, like, so every signal is like, it could be down, it could be up, but there's a spot in the middle where it's neither.
Where it's going up or down in the middle of going up.
And
or
so
down.
sometimes you have to force it up or down faster than it's going to go by itself. And this
Is
is
that
where
like
you,
hitting reset to get the right color?
well, no, it's just, this is every pulse. So this isn't the best one I could find is just the one I found quickly. But digital signals are not up or down. There is a gray part in the middle, and how you force that gray part.
Yeah, basically switching to a
lower.
0 1 and a pure digital means instantaneously you can go from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0. But
And that
because
doesn't
this is
happen.
dealing with electricity,
Reality.
you've got a bit of time before it goes up enough to become a 1 or down
that-
enough to become
That's
a
why
0.
it ramps
that
up
why
and
you-
ramps down.
Is that why you
And-
said it was analog?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not really digital. It's an analog thing. So yeah, there's a little gap. You know, you can see how you're trying to line up all these different vertical lines with all of these footballs, and it's quite the challenge.
Ron,
And-
the bottom line is the 0 and the top line is the 5, most likely in this case.
And that's
And-
0 and 5 volts you're talking about.
And you can
And-
see data valid is like, okay, it starts to change here, and it may be actually be valid here,
But it
and
may
then
not be.
we claim it's valid here, and it's supposed to be good till here, but it might have already died out. But it
All
may
right,
go
now
a little further.
explain what the pull-ups do.
They force it one way or the other. So your chip is going to either try to pull it down or pull it high or just leave it alone.
All right, so wouldn't
And
that
so-
make it
They're-
back to digital?
Well, so a pull-up
from
is going to
analog?
make it go. A pull-up's going to make it go quicker towards high, which is
And a-
nothing in this
and a-
case because we're
And
using
a pull down.
So doesn't that make it less of analog and make it more
No.
digital? Why
Well,
not?
it just makes it faster in one direction than the other. And so if it's more
Yeah.
important for you to hit
Instead of
this-
waiting, say, 0.5 microseconds to go up to the 5 volts, it's going
It's
to
gonna-
jack it up faster to be like
Right.
0.2
you gotta
microseconds.
actually
So the
pull
chip-
it down. So it's like,
So if you have a pull-up
think you're towing
resistor,
something.
I'm sorry. So if you have a pull-up
I'm going to say if
resistor,
you're towing something.
Okay,
It's easy.
Rick
Let's
first,
talk
then
over
Mark.
each other again. You and me together. 1, 2, 3, go.
Rick first, then Mark.
Okay, so if you were towing a car, you want a little bit of a drag behind it so the chain doesn't snatch. That's your pull resistor. Keep that chain taut.
Keep the tension.
yeah.
And Mark, how would you explain it?
So with the, say in the example of a pull-up, the chip only has to provide effort to pull it down and doesn't have to provide effort to bring it to the high state.
Resistors do that.
The resistor does
And-
that.
And the other thing is that a lot of chips, it's easier for them to pull the line to ground than it is to drive the line. Which, if you look at specifications of like the 74 LS chips versus a 74 HC, the LS can drive more chips on the output line than a 74 HC. And it's because of NMOS style chips versus CMOS. CMOS can't drive as many chips, so you have to have a way to take the strain off the chip, which would be the pull up resistor to pull it up.
You know what? When you're growing up, you learn about, computers are digital. They go 0 or 1, and there's nothing in between. All right, and then
It's a
you sit here
lie.
and you listen to this stuff, and exactly.
It's all a lie.
Everything you knew is wrong.
Oh,
Well,
see,
well, we
the thing
define-
And
is,
that's why I
analog-
have all this.
Analog is one of those things that which is why under the CoCo, it's not just the analog plane that for the RF shield also acts as a shield to also protect the data and address lines from RF that comes in that could affect address decoding or the state of the data bus when you're reading it too. Because RF is analog, which could affect your digital signal.
So your local AM station can actually affect the computer if it's not properly shielded.
I thought it was the rays from the sun.
Well, cosmic rays could screw up.
Yeah.
That was happening to NASA out in space. So
They always say that cosmic rays will switch a computer from one state to another.
yeah, it can flip bits.
But most of that is in space though, because our atmosphere usually shields us from most of the ones that will cause that here on Earth.
And what about those bombs that are
EMPs?
neutron
We don't
bombs?
want to
Yeah.
do that.
Those will
Neutroid. There's Neutroid.
Yeah, that's Neutroid.
They just short right across, right?
You might find your Coco's cutting
Well,
edges.
it'll induce voltages in the line that exceed what the chips are capable of doing.
Which is why most electronics get fried if they're exposed to an EMP pulse.
So they all turn to 1 instead of 0.
No, it's usually internal smokage, and then the chips don't work anymore.
Basically blows the chip up.
Yeah, it turns to 1, but say with a couple of 100 volts instead of 5.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like we were talking earlier about Bill Noble, using the pliers to figure out what circuit breakers are on or off on a wall plug. Right, flash of light. Anyway, that was a pretty interesting discussion because I didn't really understand what that meant. I actually do understand it a bit better now, and I'm not a hardware guy, so that's pretty impressive.
It's really interesting with an oscilloscope looking at the signals, and you think of them as perfect, ups and downs, but no, it shoots up, it overshoots, and it comes back down, then it drops.
What kind of a mess is this?
Yeah.
Oh,
and there's plenty of more hardware. Sorry, good.
Oh, I was going to say, speaking of an oscilloscope, the best person to watch diagnosing a digital circuit would be Adrian on some of his stuff when he's fixing like the CoCo 1 that one time with the stuff that he got from Tim.
Yeah, you should tell the viewers who Adrian is and where you can find what he's talking about.
Adrian's Digital Basement on YouTube. It's he fixes using oscilloscope, digital and the old-fashioned analog ones. It's great because he shows when you watch on the oscilloscope when the RAM goes from 1 to 0, you see physical analog noise on the lines. So that shows you that the digital circuit is analog because you see noise, spikes in voltages. It's just, you get to see how the circuit's working in ways that you just thinking logic 1 zeros. Well, there's extra stuff that happens.
Yeah. Now I do want to mention there's been a lot of more chat here from the hardware experts in the actual chat itself. Ranging from Rocky El Pedro and Mark Siegel and Dave Wormfood and Mike Miller, so Franklin Harris. Basically, if you can watch the video version of this particular portion of the show, I would probably do that. Just watch the chat going up the left side of the screen because you'll see even more details than we just went through. I don't want to dwell on it for too much longer, but basically, there's a lot of input on exactly how this works and how it affects read-write lines and all kinds of stuff. So.
I just wanted to ask one more question to you experts out there. If you're soldering a chip, and you have electricity in that needle, that you're going to put on the chip leg, why doesn't that ruin the chip?
It can.
It's not electricity.
It can.
That's why we have grounded.
If the iron is not properly grounded and the board is also not. If you're not doing the ESD prevention, if your iron touches the component, you can fry the chip.
Even many, many years ago in the 80s, Radio Shack sold a soldering iron for a few dollars more that had a grounded cord.
You mean a third prong?
That had a third prong that grounded the chip specifically independently of the AC that powered the heater. So it was double protected in a way. And even Radio Shack sold that for, $11.
I always wondered about that. And I always, if I ever had the chance that I had to solder something, I always thought to myself, now, am I screwing this up by doing this? You know,
Not until that little insulator wears out on your soldering iron.
Remember, Ron, that electricity is a circuit. It wants to go and come from whatever the source is.
Yeah,
So there was a little bit of insulation on that when you bought it, but is it still there?
So as long as the return path is, not through the chip you're trying to solder, it's not going to be an issue.
Okay.
And then there's also, I've got some Radio Shack chip insertion tools. And those chip insertion tools have a screw terminal on them for connecting a ground line so you don't fry the chips.
Just the motion of putting the legs in could cause electricity.
You yourself, with your clothing rubbing on your skin. Remember the old days, taking a balloon and rubbing it on your hair.
Yeah.
You yourself with your
You
clothing, the carpet, the chair, you can
Horse
generate
cat.
static electricity. That's why you should always be wearing the ESD wrist, which goes to a ground plane. You should always be protecting your equipment from ESDs. Give you an example. A friend of mine was walking across the carpet, grabbed his mouse, 8-inch electrical spark went from his hand to his mouse, fried the mouse and the keyboard.
Not so great for his hand either.
So ESD is bad, very bad.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next story, which is hardware again. So hopefully we don't go for another hour. But yeah, definitely. If you're interested in this topic, definitely check out the video, and you can check the live chat with a bunch of hardware experts that were going on for the entire discussion here, with other details beyond what we actually did over the air. So next bit of hardware here is actually from Brendan Donnie, and this is MC10. So we kind of covered before that he was working on getting a USB keyboard Atari joystick adapter for the MC10. And he, as he pointed out on his post on Facebook, after recovering from some mechanical fitment issues, the wired USB keyboard Atari joystick adapters for the MC10 is working well. Now to work on a new 3D printed spacer for between the case halves that move my power and reset buttons and have cutouts for the joystick and USB keyboard ports. And he's got a little bit of picture here. You can kind of see. I'll zoom it up a bit.
That doesn't look like an MC10 anymore.
Well, he hasn't got the top on it yet.
Yeah, there's one under there somewhere.
But you can see on the top of the photo here, you can see power and reset. That's the little expander. It basically increases the height of the MC10 to fit this. Now, I did ask him in the comments here. I said, well, does this work with the CoCo VGA? Because he's shown that with a spacer as well on the MC10. He said, yeah, actually, they both fit in the same time with the same spacers. You can have a USB keyboard and an Atari joystick adapter and the CoCo VGA with all of its extra video modes, including 64x32, all running in an MC10 with this one little red spacer. Which
isn't that blue board the CoCo VGA?
Yes, it is. And then the green one in the front is the other, the Atari joystick adapter and the USB keyboard adapter. But I did not know if these were meant to be exclusive to each other as far as fitting all together. But it does sound like everything's going to fit together just fine. So that's a pretty maxed out MC10 at that point. Just add MCX32SD and.
So that board has a power supply running to it, and then the MC10 has its own in the back, right?
I think he's tapping it off the power supply. I'm not sure. I can't see where the wires are going. So
yeah, I think the USB in the front is for his keyboard.
Oh, that's not power in.
No, I think that's keyboard in.
Yeah, you might be having one of those, what is it, OTG adapter?
Yeah, because this little connector here, I think, is the USB, and this is the joystick. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Boy, you don't want to plug in electric power supply there then.
Yeah. So that's cool. The two will work in conjunction with each other. And we've seen what it looks like with the CoCo VGA, that little red band around to heighten the case to fit it. And it actually looks pretty good. It just looks like a tall MC10. But now you'll be able to throw on an IBM PC keyboard on it. And Atari joysticks, like real joysticks. Like I know the stuff Jim Gary's been calling his joypad thing, which is basically just duplicating some of the keys as buttons for like left, right, and fire type thing. But this will actually be a full joystick if you write, software to use it. That's cool. Next up, we have as many stories on the Dragon as we did for the CoCo this week. So it's 5 of them. Well, 5.5, I guess. So Chris Poacher runs the semi-private microdeal, the 8-bit years group on Facebook. This is one that you can get public access to, but you have to basically, ask him to let you in on it. So he had two things that came up. The first one here is pretty cool. It's a copy of Microdeal's mail order catalog, and this is number 2. And this came out in around 84 to 85. And this is when Microdeal had been expanded to do a whole bunch of 8-bit machines in the UK. I thought it'd be worthwhile zooming up to see some of this here. So there's the standard telephone number, price list number 2. So they got an ad for Buzzard Bait here for £9.95. And they've got a review of the top 10 games from Popular Computing magazine, including a bunch of Microdeal ones. But I don't know how easy this is to see here. But they've got stuff for Ataris. They got hardware and software, complete list there. Disk accessories. And then if you go on to the next page, you got some Commodore 64 stuff there. And then you got Dragon stuff. And it's got all the prices for each individual ones in here. You can see some of the stuff that we recognize from North America, like some of the Atomics and Spectral stuff that Microdeal basically resold on their behalf, plus a bunch of original titles from the UK. So kind of interesting to see the complete list and what all the machines that Microdeal was supporting at the time. I won't go through it in detail here, but if you're a member of that group or if you join that group, you can definitely go through it. And then the second one he did here was the very early Microdeal stuff. And this is back when they still had the fairly plain packaging out the full color covers. They actually had some black cassettes here. Most of the stuff you see from Microdeal is all white. So this was basically a transitional phase in 1983 where they basically used the black tapes, which I think most music cassettes were at that time. So it was probably cheaper, briefly. A little harder to read and harder to put the masking. You couldn't, just put ink on it. You had to get the white ink. But kind of a bit of an interesting history there because I don't think I've ever seen a black cassette tape case for a Dragon program before from Microdeal. This is, I think, the first time I've ever seen it. So I don't know how long this lasted when they were using these, but kind of interesting. And I'm trying to remember, I don't remember seeing any CoCo cassettes on commercial. And I've got a ton of them back here, probably 40 or 50 original cassettes. All of them are white. I don't recall any being black. So I don't think that was ever used much in North America either, unless one of you guys have seen some, Tom Mix game or something sold in the black cassette.
No, but I really like the black cassettes though.
Yeah, I'm used to music cassettes being black. There was quite a few there. There was a mixture of black and white, but. Next up after that, we have an update from Kieran on XROR. Now, this is kind of a special build that you can do if you're running Linux. And I'll just read it verbatim here, just so you guys can understand what he's talking about, because I don't understand it all. Linux users who don't mind using or don't mind building from source. In the public Git repo for XROR, there is a CVBS branch. You can open a video options dialog, and with simulated cross-color and with one of the cross-color inputs selected, inputs in quotes, adjust various parameters, brightness, contrast, hue, but also enabling various parts of the filter pipeline. Next thing I'm going to work on is making each filter a drop-down to pick one of the many built-ins for each stage, but I thought some people might like messing around with it with what's there now. For those that care, all filters are FIR. Don't know what that means. You guys can explain it after I finish reading. Maximum 23 tap with F sub S equals 14.31818 megahertz or 14.218 megahertz. They doubtless be better if much larger with lots of oversampling, but I, for one, don't have the CPU for that. Apologies to Windows and Mac OS X users, but I don't really know how to do the appropriate dialog boxes on your platforms. The goal here is that most of this won't need messing around with anyway once I know the settings that work nicely, although brightness, contrast, hue are definitely nice to have around. And then he had an update here on the comments. Now you get to pick all the individual filters. It will cut out certain parts of the chain and spare your CPU if you turn certain ones off. I need to flesh out the list of filters, maybe describe them a bit better, and many other things. Averaging alternate lines in PAL is probably a big one. So for the people that understand some of this terminology that went way over my head, basically what my understanding here is there's a whole bunch of filters for doing effects on the video to simulate various different things, and he's actually enabling you to enable or disable them at will with a special build of XROR. Is that kind of understanding it right? And also, I don't know what a FIR is.
I don't either.
The taps and all this other stuff he's talking about. You hardware guys have a better explanation for the layman?
So the 14.218 megahertz, that's crystal, and I know they usually divide that down for your video. So there must be something with the sampling or the refresh rate.
I do see a comment from Mark Siegel. He says, I tried to get him to do a comb filter, which I've heard of, but I don't really know what that does.
Kieran Voodoo.
So finite input response filter is a finite duration because it settles to 0 in a finite time. So it's sort of a comb filter. Because it's going to, regardless of the input frequency, it settles to 0 in a finite time. So yeah, it's right. Is that right, Mark?
Well, let's just ask Siren to add an extra paragraph for those of us that are newbies.
Yeah, I think he's left us in the dust on this one.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at comb filters in a long time, and I don't remember the specifics. I know that they have teeth like a comb, and it's designed to let certain things through and other things not, but I don't know in this application what they would be.
Well, if you're combing fur, FIR.
Yeah, it should be shaped like a comb.
FUR?
This may not be technically a theoretical comb filter, but it seems to be going that way. I think that's what we're leading towards.
Anyway, it sounds like you muck with a lot of video settings and kind of tweak it to your heart's content. It sounds like he's trying to figure out kind of the best balance of these various filters to give the best output to most accurately represent what would be coming out of a CRT from back in the day. I'm guessing that's what he's
right. Remember,
kind of the summary of what he's trying to do here with all these complicated bits that actually do the work.
Remember all the cool color TVs had comb filters?
And tint knob.
Sure. I have no idea. I just turned it on and watched TV. I didn't have.
That was what they sold. If you wanted to buy the new XL100 RCA, it had a comb filter. That's why you wanted to put money in that puppy.
I've heard of comb sorts, but I'm not familiar with the hardware side of things. Anyway, it sounds like he's doing some pretty cool stuff. If you have a Linux box that you're running XFOR in, if you want to compile it to try out some of this stuff before he kind of settles on what he believes is the best common setting for everybody, it might be worth you doing some experiments and maybe sending him some feedback so that he kind of knows what direction to go with that.
Curtis, I had a question about the SDC that I forgot to ask, or I didn't get time to ask her, whatever it is. But are we able to go quite a ways with updates without running out of space on the SDC?
I don't know. I don't know how much the ROM's filled in for the SDC DOS extensions he's been doing. I don't know how much room he has in the CPLD to do the firmware for the actual controller. I do know when I originally asked him to try to make 609 native mode writes work, he said he didn't have enough room on the CPLD to implement that. I don't know, because of the update he's done now, maybe figured out a different way to do it, or if it just doesn't work at 2 megahertz. So I think the CPLD, he was pretty close to being full. I haven't looked at the SDC ROM. I don't know, Tim, if you have, as to how much room is left in there. I know extended ADOS 3 let you go up to 16K, and the standard disk basic's only like 6.5. So
microcontroller. Not CPLD, microcontroller.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it does have a CPLD too.
Yes, but that doesn't get updated by the CoCo.
So all memories inside of it, and it's not something you can add memory to later.
No, I think you'd have to swap a chip, right, Dave?
Yes, and of course, since Darren does it all in assembly, it's basically, yeah, you're limited based on what he's done, and of course, since he's made it for a specific set of components, even if you change the chip, you're not going to get anywhere. So
imagine he's already crunched it a lot to get it in the place it is now, and to rethink that is just going to be a disaster. Right?
So down the road, there's only going to be so much more he can do, and then that's it. We have to look at a whole nother machine.
Well, the microcontroller, I think you could upgrade that and then give yourself some more room and even more speed or whatever. That I think you could. You'd have to redesign the board, of course, because of like more pins or whatever. The SDC ROM, on the other hand, that you might be hitting the hard limit soon.
Okay.
As to what you can, unless you do some fancy, MMU paging or something, that's going to make it probably incompatible with some stuff.
It's just interesting that it's like a CPU, and you would think that it only has so much memory, but you wouldn't think that you could add memory to it, like, put another chip on that had memory that it could access.
Yeah. That honestly, that would be a question for Darren himself.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, and this is going completely away from hardware. So a guy named, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, so please excuse me if I'm not, but Varun Khanna in the Dragon users group on Facebook, he said, "How are you today? I just wanted to ask what your favorite games are for the Dragon 32 computer and why. And I'm doing some research for one of my projects for this group soon." So obviously he's doing some project related to games. Now there was some, a fairly bit of bleed between the CoCo scene and the Dragon scene on stuff like Donkey King and Time Bandit and Cashman, that kind of stuff. Obviously they had some pretty cool original stuff. We just covered one of those, Lucifer's Kingdom, here just a couple weeks ago on the Game On Challenge. And we've covered some other ones in the past too, including stuff by Stuart Orchard, and Kieran himself has of course done a few. But if any of you that have a fair bit of experience with the Dragon games and stuff, or even some of the CoCo ones that we know the Dragon had, if you guys want to pipe in for this survey he's kind of taking for whatever this project is that he's working on, and there's been quite a few suggestions already. I'll just mention a few here, like people mentioned Manic Miner, Jet Set Willie, Airball, Shock Trooper. Scroll down a little bit here. Chucky A, of course. Frogger, Red Meanies, Return of the Alien Bongo Beast, which is one of Stuart's. Donkey King and Buzzard Bait, Screaming Abdabs, Phantom Slayer, that's a favorite of mine. Dungeon Raid, Rommel's Revenge. There's a ton of them. But if anybody wants to pipe in and give their own opinions on there, they can follow this discussion on the Dragon group and respond back to him. And it's somehow going to be involved in some project he's going to be releasing to the group later on. So I don't know if he's just trying to do a history of it, or maybe just kind of getting what's the innovative games for the Dragon. I'm not sure exactly what the project is. But feel free to contribute some ideas and suggestions. Next up, I won't play too much of this. This is on a Spanish YouTube channel, which is a blog of a guy named Manuel Laca. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. But he does a 40-minute tour of the computer museum at the University of Zaragoza, which I believe is in Spain. And it covers a ton of retro computing stuff. And some stuff is even earlier than that. They get into some like the minis, and they even go back into some things like the first mechanical switches and stuff from the 1830s and things. So it's a pretty interesting thing. You'll have to turn the closed captioning on because it's all in Spanish, unless you speak Spanish, of course. But they actually go through the Dragon 32. Now, of course, the Dragon 32, after Dragon Data failed in the UK, a Spanish company called Eurohard actually got the rights to it and actually did sell and manufacture Dragons for a while. So he does a brief little bit here on the Dragon here, and covers both the UK time period as well as the Spanish time period of getting manufactured in both countries, spanning between 82 to 87. So it's got a lot of cool history. If you don't mind closed caption stuff, turn on the auto translate in YouTube and you can actually kind of follow along. But it looks like a really cool museum. I mean, I kind of wish I did speak Spanish, because it looks like there's a lot of cool, interesting stuff in there. A lot of it we've seen other UK computers or European computers, I should say, some North American computers, but a lot of like custom stuff from Spain and a lot of older stuff too that goes into the history of computers and how computers came to be in the first place, from the mechanical side of things all the way up to electronic age. So it looks like a really cool museum. I would definitely recommend, if you're into the history of computing, that it's definitely worthwhile checking, even with the subtitles. Next up, and I'll play this in its entirety. This is a YouTube channel called The Only Way is OLED Display. Not sure I agree with that, but okay. But basically what he's doing here is basically it's the 40th anniversary of Dragon 30 of the Dragon User magazine, which their first issue is the May 1983. I'm not sure when that actually came out, if that was probably March or April, because usually magazine covers tend to be a little bit in advance, so they stay on the newsstands longer for sale. But he kind of goes through showing some pictures of some software that was advertised in Dragon, some covers from Dragon, some ads from Dragon User magazine, sort of like a mini history. It goes through when it was, the full color covers, like you can see on the start of the video here is the very first issue from May of 1983. But then later on, same thing Rainbow did. Rainbow went to newspaper format the last couple of years to try to get the cost down so they can keep publishing as long as they could. Dragon went, being full color covers and stuff, and went back to being just black and red ink for the same reason, shrunk the size. They did the same thing, basically. They had a passion for the Dragon User and wanted to keep it going as much as they could, as long as they could, even though it was a money losing proposition as the user base shrank, active user base shrank. So I think it's a pretty good tribute to it to kind of see his history of the Dragon. So I'll just play it in its entirety. Let me know if the background music he's got playing gets annoying. I can mute it if you guys want to just see the video stuff. And feel free to comment during the video if you see something cool. Full color ads from Microdeal.
The Cuthbert guy sort of looks like a Mad Magazine guy.
Yeah, Alfred Newman.
Yeah.
Like Penguin, I didn't know that was available for the Commodore 64, the Atari, and the Dragon. That was news to me. I should mention these are in chronological order too. So right now we're on like June of '85, so a couple years after it started.
Did they not know that the color computer wasn't 32K much?
What was that?
Did they not know that the color computer didn't come with 32K? It was only what, 16K or 64, right?
Well, the CoCo 1 did have a 32K model. The board came with 32K. So if they sold that equivalent in the UK, it would have been 32K briefly until the 64K CoCo and CoCo 2 came out.
Does that tell you? In other words, we see that because of the time it was?
Probably, because 83 would have been before, like May of 83 would have been before the 64K CoCo and CoCo 2s came out. Those didn't come out till September, October in North America. I'm not sure when they would have hit the UK. And here you can see Dragon, when they went to the cheap version with like no full color covers, it's just black and red ink and a smaller size, but they kept going as long as they could. In fact, they went to subscription only. You wouldn't be able to get it on newsstands anymore.
How far did they go a year?
88, I think, was last year.
Oh.
Which, considering the Dragon stopped getting manufactured about 84, that's so
the Rainbow
pretty decent run considering.
The Rainbow went to what, 93?
Yeah, but remember the CoCo 3 kept getting sold at Tandy till 1992 or 1990. I think 90 or 91. When does the CoCo 3 stop selling? Any of you Radio Shack guys remember?
I thought it was 91.
Yeah, so they lasted 2 years after the Tandy shut down, or 2 or 3 years after the Tandy quit selling it. And Dragon user, like I think the Spanish Eurohard quit selling the Dragon 84, 85, and they kept going till 88. So roughly about the same. They lasted about as long. And that's the end of the news.
And then there's us.
Yeah. No, I do have that little get put graphics demo. I don't know if you want to do one last commercial, Mark, while I get this kind of set up.
Okay, I can do that.
Hi, I'm Terry Steggy from Retro Tech Time and the Tandy Shack, and you're watching the CoCo Nation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins.
From the makers of the Switcheroo. Wallaby Cable, Color Computer 3 Dual RGB Cable. Get yours today at cocoman.biz.
In 1988, a scandal rocked the color computer community.
Have you ever been a member of the Australian OS9 users group? Answer the question, Mr. Morentis. Crikey!
Okay, so before I get to the little demonstration, which is basically what I was working with Tier City Retro Gaming on YouTube there about the masking and some other tricks that get put buffers, I did want to mention Ken and I will be doing a seminar in Basic 9, Nitrous 9 again at CoCo Fest this year. But we've kind of covered pretty well all the new features that have been added. So we want to get into some more tips and tricks and techniques. And basically, we're going to take some suggestions. If you guys can send an email to me at curtisboyle@sasktel.net, or you can get a hold of Ken on Canadian Retro Things YouTube channel. Leave a comment if you want to see some certain things covered. But we're going to do a bit of a live thing on the CoCo Discord tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget the time zone change for those that actually do change their times. Ron and I are smart. We don't do that silly thing.
Nope.
But basically, we'll be taking some suggestions and maybe make some general discussion, something we can cover. If we get a lot of suggestions, obviously we won't be able to cover them all in a 1-hour seminar, but maybe we'll take the ones that seem to be the most common or the ones that probably are the least obvious to figure out on your own type thing, and we'll try to build a few things around that. And I'm since Ken's a bit newer to the Nitrous 9 and Basic 9 as well, I'm feel free to have your own suggestions, Ken, if you want to learn how to do certain things. And since you're actually going to be helping giving this seminar, you get more pull than anybody else. So feel free to stomp at everybody else there as far as suggestions go. So tomorrow on the CoCo Discord at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is 2 p.m. Central, and I think 1 p.m. for you. And what is your West Coast time called there, Ken?
Pacific, I believe.
We have
Something like that.
Arizona time.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Arizona special.
Mm-hmm.
So now for something completely different, I'm going to do stuff in Disk Basic, not in OS9, which is not something I normally do at all. So
I hope somebody's recording this. Oh, yeah, we are.
Yeah. This will be as scandalous as Nick Morenni's being part of the OS9 users group.
That's right. I'm recording this now.
We're recording it for posterior.
Or a scandal video too.
Okay, so basically I sent him a little demo of 3 programs, and I'm not going to go super into detail, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me. The source code's there, obviously. If you want to actually get this disk image, I've actually got it on my site. I don't have it as a link. It's a direct access thing. And the URL for that is the letter L, curtisboyle.com/ and then all lowercase get-put.zip. And that will contain the disk image with these 3 little demo programs. And it also contains a text file where I kind of try to explain, probably a little bit too wordy and technical, knowing me, exactly what each one is doing. So you'll see there's 3 things. There's put background, or put BKGND, big get, which means getting a really large buffer, and saucer. Now, saucer is not one I did. Saucer is actually from Rainbow Magazine from way back in, what the heck was it, 83 or something like that? But it was basically a demo of using some undocumented features for doing faster get put buffers than what's documented in the manual for Extended Basic. And basically, these are based on even byte. You have to get or put on an even byte, and you don't use the G option. So we'll get into that in a second here. So the first one I want to get into, there's one big bug in the Extended Basic manual, and I know Alan Huffman has touched on this in some of his blog posts on his Subetha software site. where basically they tell you a way to calculate how much room you have to reserve in an array for a get put buffer, and it's completely wrong. It basically is telling you to use 5 times as much memory as you actually need, which means you're very limited to how much room, if you follow their examples of how big many get put buffers, how big your get put buffers can be. The proper way of dealing with it and to figure out exactly what it should be is that you have to remember that every real number, now you do a dim, like all numeric variables in BASIC are reals. There's no integer like BASIC 9 has or some other computers have. So it takes 5 bytes per character for a floating point number. When you're doing a dim of an array for a get put buffer, basically it's just treating them as just bytes. It doesn't care that everyone's 5 bytes. But the way the extended basic manual explains is they're telling you to reserve 5 bytes of numeric array space per 1 byte of graphics. You're blowing the other 4 basically, like it's just wasting a ton of space. So there's a bit of a calculation you can do. Basically, you have to figure out, depends on what screen mode you're in, because we have 2 color modes and 4 color modes. So a byte in a 2 color mode will be 8 pixels, and a byte in a 4 color mode will be 4 pixels. So if you wanted to get a shape that's like 4 by 4 in the 4 color, it would be 4 across, would be 1 byte across times 4 lines down. So you only need a dim of, whatever you want to call your array, of 4 to fit that entire get put buffer. If you follow the extended basic manual, it'll be telling you to use 20 bytes instead, 5 times as much. So one demo I did here was big get. And what I do here is I actually create an array big enough to hold an entire screen, a P mode 4 screen or a P mode 3 screen in one get put buffer, which if you follow the extended basic manual, you can't even dim enough an array to do that. It's going to take like 30K and you have no room for your basic program. But actually you don't need to do that. So I get some, actually, maybe I'll do it for you. I'm running on a CoCo 3, but this is actually runs on a CoCo 1, 2, should run on a Dragon just fine too. So in this case here, you can see I did dim SC 1229. I did that basically by calculating a 256 pixel by 192 pixel divided by 8, because it's on a P mode 4, there's only 1 bit per pixel, so 8 bits in a byte. You can fit 8 pixels in a byte. And basically, the size of the screen is 6,144 bytes total. And basically, because a floating point number takes 5 bytes per digit or per entry in an array, you take 6144, you divide it by 5, and it rounds up to 1229. Now, Alan Huffman, I did send him this just to kind of review it. And he mentioned something I'd forgotten, but in this case, I didn't bother changing it because it doesn't make a huge difference. But all dimensioned arrays in Microsoft Extended Basic have an element 0. They start at 0, not at 1. I did the math based on 1. So I'm reserving 5 bytes too many. You can actually probably drop this down. But anyway, can you guys see the cursor that I'm holding over top of this? Can you only see the screen?
Yeah. That's good.
Okay. So this dim here is basically enough to hold an entire P mode 3 or P mode 4 screen. 6K, basically. And still leaves you a fair bit of room for your basic program. And then I've got P mode 4, 1, screen, 1, PCLS 0. So I'm just, creating a screen. And then I do this other little trick here where I tell it P mode 3, but no screen command. So what that does is it tells BASIC I'm dealing with 4 color mode now. And if you want to have controlled artifact colors on a NTSC based CoCo, this is the easiest way to do it. You tell it the P mode 4, 1 basically tells it it's going to be doing a 2 color screen. The screen 1, 1 is saying color set 1 and graphics mode, display that screen. Now, once you do that, if you go and change to P mode 3, but don't do a corresponding screen command again, you're telling BASIC to treat it as a P mode 3 screen, but the hardware is still treating it as a P mode 4. So in this case, it's going to be the white border, black and white, but now with artifacted red and blue. And then I just do some random color and random lines and stuff like that. And that actually will get the entire screen, clear it, and then put the entire screen back on with a put command. So I'll just, let's the tail end here. So basically you can see here, I PCLS a random color just to make sure that I'm showing that I wiped the screen out with something else. And then I'll pause delay so you can see it. And then we'll do a put from 00 to 255, 191 with the SC. You'll notice when I do the get above, I'm doing a get to the SC array, but I'm not using the G option. So this get will only work in even byte boundary. Since I'm doing the whole screen, every line's on an even byte boundary, so that's not a problem. Then I do another little pause delay, and then I go back and clear the screen again. So I will quickly demonstrate this so you can see what it looks like. Okay, turn on that. Artifact colors here, display, composite. So that's the first trick is I'm using P mode 4, P mode 3. And now I'm doing a PCLS to a random color and then putting that entire screen back on, which is a bit slower than the PCLS, as you can see. But still, that's not bad for dumping 6K and taking a lot less memory than what Tandy had said. So you can actually get and put an entire screen in one shot. And, 32K, I've still got 16K free. So under the Tandy scheme, I would have been out of memory before I could even run the program doing the large array. So that's one trick. Well, two tricks, actually, because it shows you how to do artifact colors controllably under basic. And then it also does the trick of not reserving so much room that you don't need to do. Then you can put an entire thing. So I'll reset just so I get my memory back to normal. Next one I'll run is the saucer. This is the demo from Rainbow. And this shows the trick of doing the even byte get put buffers. Oops. Trying to type around, my mic sucks. So this one basically, it has a little drawing of a saucer. And it's using a trick that I know Nick has used in assembly language too, where if you want speed, you do your get put buffers rather than do all the bit shifting stuff, which is what the G option lets you do on get, where you can tell it to shift 2 pixels over, which is shifting between bytes. It has to do a bunch of rotates and shifts and stuff to get that to work, but just work. If you can keep things going on even byte boundaries, it can just dump bytes raw. It's almost like how it's kind of like compiled sprites for basic are the closest thing you possibly get. Make it a wider screen so you can see more of the listing. So this is originally by Andy Cluck, October 1984 Rainbow, page 44 if you want to read the full article. Andy Cluck also is the guy that did Space Ambush for Computerware. So he actually wrote assembly language games for CoCo. That's a Galaxian clone if you haven't seen it already. But basically what he's doing here is he's drawing this little saucer, and it's a pretty decent sized one. And the first part of the demo, you'll see it running with normal get put. This is with the G option, bit shifting, and it'll, move the saucer up and then move it diagonally up to the right using the normal get put that they explain in the manual. And then he runs it again, but this time he actually does 4 separate gets for a 2 pixel offset, a 4 pixel offset, a 6 pixel offset, and then does, the raw byte boundary puts based on those. So you have to get, a little bit extra space to fill the bytes and then draw them over top. But you can see the speed differences you'll see here, because the first part of the demo will show it at the speed as shown in the extended basic manual. And then if you use this trick without using G and using even byte boundaries, how much faster get puts can be. So you can actually do some more arcade style games. So this is the normal G. You can kind of watch this ripple effect as it's drawing. I mean, considering a lot of computers did not have get put buffers at all back in the day, this isn't, it's not horrible. But the speed difference you'll see now using the even byte boundary and the non-G option, still using get put. So that took 22.63 seconds to run. And this is using the other method. That shaved it down to 7.7 seconds. So it takes about a third the time. And that's at regular speed. So now if we wanted to run it double speed, I'll use the CoCo 3 double speed because I'm using the CoCo 3 emulator, but CoCo 1 and 2 speed up poke would also speed this up. So now we're running at 1.78 megahertz. This actually doesn't look too bad with this double speed. Took 11.2 seconds, but now look at that comparatively. 3.85 seconds. So if you want to do fast graphics using get put, now I will mention, like we were talking about the Tier City retro programming was doing the stuff where he's trying to do the background masking to get stuff not to destroy the background. This method does not work for that. This is only if you're doing even byte boundary puts and you're not worried about the background at all. So this would be good for like a space game where the background's going to stay black all the time. But you can definitely write some much faster games using that kind of technique, or graphic demos or whatever else you want to do. So that's that one. And then the last one is basically kind of what his video covered, which is running the get put buffer background. So I tried to make mine a little bit more obvious. You can see the different pieces of it as it's running. So here on the top in the green area, and I use the same P mode 1-2 pages that he used in his demo. The upper left one, which is the blue box with the red X through it, that's the actual sprite, quote unquote, get put buffer itself. And then the one on the right on the green is the background mask. And basically what that is that anything that's green will show the sprite data. So the blue and the red in the box on the left. And anything that is red will show whatever's in the background underneath it. And then when I and the mask on the right, the red box a little across the middle, I and that onto the yellow. And then I or the actual sprite data, which is the blue box with the red X. And basically the combination of those two means whatever's underneath the mask part will just show up and the background and keep it intact. So now you're seeing that I'm putting a shape that had a green background over top of yellow, and I could put random lines or other shapes or whatever else underneath, and it'll actually leave the background intact. And it runs fairly quick. Now, if you remember him when he was using the keyboard to move stuff around, you can actually see it kind of drawing the background mask first and then drawing it. And he's using bigger sprites, so it'll be more obvious than my smaller ones here. The secret to get around that is basically draw it off screen, like the fact that, you know, I can draw stuff on different pages. That's one really powerful thing about Extended Basic, is that you have these different pages where you can draw stuff that the player never sees, and have everything pre-drawn and finished and clean, and you don't have to watch ripple effects and all kinds of things. And then you just either display that screen by doing, let's say, a P mode 1,3 or whatever, or you can get that shape from that page you can't see and then just put it on here pre-rendered, so you don't see any other drawing effects either. It just draws it. And I don't know if you could see on the bottom, if you watch the bottom row of stuff, you can see the ripple or the drawing effect a little bit. This is a smaller sprite, so it's not as obvious as his was, but you can very briefly, I don't know if it shows up in the stream, you can very briefly see the green and mask going on the background. And that basically you can go through, and this is a bit of a bigger program because I put a lot of comments. And also I drew that, stupid shape, etc. there, but it's a pretty good little tutorial. Like I said, you can get it off my site. If any of you forget what the URL is, you can just text me in Discord in the basic channel or something, and I'll give you the link. If there's enough, requests for it, maybe I'll actually make it a public link as opposed to a private one. But that was just to show some get put buffer tricks that you can do. And this is the kind of stuff we'd like to cover in the Basic 9 seminars. If there's any tricks like this, there's a bunch of others too. Like there's a way to do clipping on the bottom of this. Basically you can run stuff going through an invisible hole in the ground and things like that. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do that you can't really do here. Like I said earlier in the podcast, that the one disappointment I have with CoCo 3 Super Extended Basic, you have these new graphics modes, 16 colors and really cool stuff like that, but they didn't support the multiple pages anymore. And if you have 512K, you perfectly could. The game can put 512 or 32K or 16K graphic screens all over the damn place and use what we are called page flipping or double buffering, depending what terminology you use to. You could do these same types of tricks, but Basic did not support that. And Basic 9 and Nitrous 9 does. So in fact, it's more extravagant than you can get in regular Extended Basic. So anyway, that might give you some ideas of some things to think about, what to ask me and Ken tomorrow as far as what kind of things you'd like to see us to cover in the Basic 9. The reason we're doing this ahead of time too is that if you guys pick some topic I'm not too familiar with, I might have to research it myself before I can give you an answer. And I'd rather not just do a question and answer session at the CoCo Fest, because then you guys might stump me and I'll look like a complete moron idiot more than I normally do on the show here. So join us tomorrow if you guys have any suggestions or just want to see what other suggestions other people come up with, and maybe that'll trigger a suggestion of your own.
Where do we see you tomorrow?
CoCo
Here?
Discord. We'll just do a public streamy thing.
Ow! Freaking cat.
If I could have a couple minutes, I do have a small little update from something that I showed earlier. It'll
Sure.
take 2 minutes.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and switch my screen here real quick. So let me just do this.
Well, we don't have to play your intro twice.
No, no. Okay, so I showed this earlier, and was it Paul that mentioned it was a digitizer cable, I believe.
Yeah, somebody had mentioned that it might be.
Yeah,
Right.
in the chat.
Yep, in the chat there. So I went out and looked on the archive, and yeah, there's a program out there called the Digitizer 3 Plus, and it was for the Color Computer 3, and it actually has the instructions out there. And so I printed these out, and I was kind of reading through it just a little bit on the back, which doesn't print out very well, and it's almost a blank page from what you can see there. It talks about building your own cable, and so this might have been something that you didn't buy, you built, and it uses the 6-pin DIN, and it talks about using the in the instructions. It talks about using a mono plug. They used a stereo plug here, but it would still work the same if you use the right wire in there. And it also talks about using a 1 microfarad tantalum capacitor. And I slipped the sleeve off the end of the DIN plug, and inside here there is a small capacitor. So that is exactly what this is. This is the digitizer for it works through the CoCo 3 left joystick port, and when you run the program, it allows you to do some digitized sampling. And it looks like you can grab some samples. You can I'm talking a little bit out of my league here a little bit though, but it shows how you can grab these samples, and how you can. It also has some machine language routines that you can use to incorporate some of these sounds. So
where's the 1/8-inch jack plug into?
This would plug into your audio source, whatever that may be.
Oh,
maybe it's maybe it's your computer and you're playing some wave files on your computer or something, but you would sample the audio through that.
and you're saying it's mono?
Yes. So I just thought that's exactly what it was. So I appreciate whomever it was that chimed up about that. So now at least I know what this is. And then the other thing I was going to show, because somebody mentioned it, but I also have this here, and I think this is what this actually plugs into your cassette port, and then you plug your audio into here, and then that would allow you to, like, let's say you had like you wanted to use your phone or something like that, you could plug a phone jack into there and plug the other end into your phone or into your computer, to where you could play a wave file into the directly into the cassette port through the audio port. And there's a couple different versions of this. I mean, you could use a regular cassette cable that would that goes and just plug that into the audio. But so I just had this also with it. But anyway, I just wanted to share that a little bit. That I went out and found that.
When you opened up the plug on the cable, how many wires were going to the into the CoCo? Because I'm wondering if because he's got a stereo jack on one end, whether he's feeding the cables to both the X and Y of the joystick.
Oh, and recording 2 6-bit ones, like say the left channel, the right channel.
Maybe it's an option for stereo.
I think he's only using the one.
Right. More likely use the stereo jack to not confuse whatever audio device you plug the plug into. You wouldn't want to short input and output together on a stereo.
Well, he might have had a stereo cable. He just bodged that.
Tie them both left and right together.
Well, assuming you're going to plug it into a stereo device, you don't want to just take a mono jack and short the two left and right together. You want to go on and use a stereo jack, even if you only snip one channel.
Next time, Brian, take pictures.
Yes, they
right. Make a chart.
Right.
No, one of the wires was just terminated with a little bit of heat shrink. So he was only using just the ground shielding.
Yeah, to be honest, I remember the recording rate even on the CoCo 3 was only like 8 or 9 kilohertz or something like that, because of the way you have to do the whole ramp reading and stuff for the joystick. And if you're trying to do that on 2 channels at once, like the X and the Y, you're going to be chopping that in half. So you're going to be like 4 or 5 kilohertz best case scenario of reading it. So I imagine they would only use mono unless you don't care about quality. Though you could technically, if you're trying to do like a explosion sound effect in stereo, you might be able to do something like that where if it's a bit noisy, you don't care.
Right.
And really, you have to output to a AUX 90 then.
Yeah.
Been beating our head against for a while now.
I was looking to see if I can slip this off again real quick here.
And take pictures?
Carts and grass, I'm telling you.
I don't know if I'm going to take any pictures right now, but no, that's not slipping off for me right now. I had it off earlier with a screwdriver when I stepped away, but anyway. Yeah, so I thought you guys
It
might
should be fun seeing you stab yourself.
Yeah.
We'll
Oh,
sell
come
tickets to that.
right?
Ooh, lifeblood.
Go to the overhead cam, quick.
Watch our numbers soar.
CoCo Nation number 304.
Oh,
Blood
okay.
version.
There we go. Here you go, guys. If you want to spotlight me again here, I'll we'll see if we can zoom in real close here. See how well this comes in.
Genuine 1970s wood grain.
Let's see here. It's kind of hard to see. Whoops, wrong. Oh, geez. You know what, guys? You know, you think I know.
You opened the wrong cord.
You think you know what I'm doing here, huh?
Turn on the camera.
That's the type of demo I do.
There you go. Yeah, open up the. No, what I was struggling with it because it's like, why is this?
Maybe you can play music for a while.
It's like it didn't come apart. It didn't come apart that hard the
Dan is a
last time, and then I
professional.
go and take the wrong darn one apart. Here, this came apart real easy this time.
This intermission is brought to you by.
Okay, let's see here now. Let's try this again. See if this will zoom in or not. It's kind of hard because everything's kind of black and white.
Put your hand under it or something, maybe to force the camera to focus higher.
Zoom out. Just give up on size and go for sharpness.
Try cupping your hand under it. Does that focus it?
Well, I zoomed in so far, it still can't zoom.
Almost.
Oh, so close.
So you can kind of see right there. There's this
Is it ground?
ground wire right there, the shielding.
Yeah.
And then what you can't see in the bottom right here is there's a white cable right there underneath my finger.
You need a pointer.
You want a pointer?
Yeah.
On the capacitor in the black.
There you go.
So right here, I need to get some light in here. You can't quite see it because right there in that there's a heat shrink over it. That's the capacitor, and it's going to pin. I got this upside down. I can't. Let's see. It's going to be pin. Is that pin 5? Can't remember if it goes clockwise or counterclockwise around the whole thing. Pin 5. Yes.
Yeah. So that's
it's going to pin 5, and then pin 3, which I believe is the ground right there.
So the cap is a DC block, so you don't actually feed actual voltage into the computer, just the AC difference in the signal.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would just be direct wires through. But
okay,
that could be evil.
And then there's a little piece of heat shrinking right here, which takes the. It's kind of hard to see here because it's just not very good. It's kind of hard to see, but there's the other wire, which would be, because this is a stereo plug, they just have that capped off with a little bit of heat shrink over it so it doesn't make any contact. So there's a red and a white and a ground wire, and the white wire is going to the tantalum capacitor to pin 5, and the red wire, which would be the other part of the stereo plug, that just caps off, and then the braided shielding goes to pin 3.
So once you make one of these up and you run the software, you can record sound.
Yes, you could take audio samples. Mm-hmm. I've never done it before. I don't know if anybody else can speak to the experience of doing this kind of audio sampling.
And then how are those files saved off as?
That I'm not sure about. I haven't fully read
Whatever
the
the
manual.
software did with it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I don't know what kind of a file format that it made it into. But I'm not sure if it says in here or not.
So we're recording analog on an analog computer.
Anyway, that's all I had there, guys.
What have we learned today?
Nothing.
Hardware is difficult.
Detroit's the best.
Depending on voltage.
Right. In time.
I think that's it, folks. Just
Well,
a reminder that Ken and I will be on tomorrow on Discord, CoCo Discord. We'll have a little public discussion for questions for the seminar. We've got the new game for next week.
After this show, I'm going to be building, some things.
And of course, remember we have daylight savings time taking effect,
Yes.
so that's going to shift our show 1 hour for those people who do not
Do not
partake.
take.
And here is the outro.
This concludes another episode of the CoCo Nation, the world's leading live interactive talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things the CoCo Nation, visit us on the web at thecoconation.com. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to show@thecoconation.com. The CoCo Nation Show would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. The CoCo Nation theme song, copyright 2022, D. Bruce Moore. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. The CoCo Nation is over. Join us on the CoCo Discord server. CoCo forever.
I still think a screenshot of the CoCo with RAM problems or runaway program would be appropriate there.
At the
when
end.
you have the click and then you have the psychedelic screen.
We'll have to get our graphics art department working on that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you just have to run the kaleidoscope from the
Audio Spectrum.
audio spectrum analyzer.
Well,
Yeah,
I
that'd
think
be
that's
good.
it for the show.
Okay. Then let's
Close the
just
plug.
wave goodbye.
Yep. See y'all next week.
And it doesn't do a damn bit of good for me to wave goodbye because nobody can see me.
CoCo Fest is
There.
coming.
There he is.
How's that? Hey, bye.